Alex, let me know when Commissioner Bruns gets on. She's running a second late.
Yes, sir. I'm looking for it.
Linda, I see Commissioner Garver as an attendee that probably needs to be moved to a panelist.
Commissioner Bruns, I see you. Can you hear us okay?
Yep. Sorry, I'm late.
Linda, this is Meg. I think Elizabeth's also an attendee. If you could move her, that'd be great.
Okay. It is 1 o'clock. Welcome to the December 16th, 2020 Metropolitan Development Commission public meeting. We now have a quorum and can begin to move forward. A couple of housekeeping notes. We ask everybody to stay on mute in order to cut down on the feedback during the meeting. If you're having bandwidth issues, turn off your video and just go audio. I think it'll help you just to be able to hear the meeting. And if you got any extra programs going like Windows or VPN, please take those off. It'll give you faster results. The Metropolitan Development Commission for December 16th of 2020 will now come to order due to the recent executive orders issued by Governor Holcomb and Mayor Hogsett regarding COVID-19 guidelines and restrictions, as well as enabling legislative bodies the ability to conduct meetings electronically. The MDC is conducting today's meeting electronically. Before we will begin, I will ask our host of the meeting, Linda Albrand, to please identify each person calling in and what case they are present for this afternoon. Linda.
Thank you, President Dillon. Call-in users, if you are calling in by telephone, I'm going to unmute you one at a time. You will hear a beep. Once you hear that beep, let us know your name and which case you're here on and whether you're in support or against.
This is Stefano Piantoni. I am from AAA Novartis. I'm here to discuss the tax abatement for the new manufacturing site in Indianapolis.
Can you state your name one more time?
I am Stefano Piantoni. I work for AAA. I'm here to discuss the tax abatement for the new manufacturing site of AAA Novartis to be constructed near the Indianapolis airport.
And you are in support?
I'm in support.
Thank you. No other call-in user is indicating that they want to speak. President Dillon, we can continue.
Thank you. I'll now call the roll. And by calling the roll, I'll know who can hear and who can see. Commissioner Blackburn. You're on mute, Alpha. Could you check?
Now,
There you go.
okay, I can see and hear. Thank you.
Welcome. Commissioner Bruns,
Bruns is here and can see and hear.
Commissioner Garver,
Garver can see and hear.
Commissioner Hackett is not here today. Commissioner Robinson,
Robinson can see and hear.
Schumacher.
Commissioner Schumacher can see and hear.
Thank you, Bruce. Commissioner Selm,
Commissioner Selm can see and hear.
Commissioner Westrick,
I can see and hear.
Dillon can see and hear. We have 8 present, 1 missing. We obviously have a quorum to continue. MDC hearing specialist Nancy Whitaker, can you see and hear? Nancy? Linda, is she muted or?
I'm not seeing her.
I see her and it looks like she's muted. Nancy, can you unmute yourself?
Muted, but I had to go off. I'm sorry. I was trying to help some people that can't get logged in. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Nancy. Let me go down through the list of members of the MDC. Rusty Carr,
Yep, here and see. Thank you.
Matt Pleasant,
Yes, sir, I can see and hear.
Alex Brooks,
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Larry Calloway,
Yes, President Dillon, I can see and hear.
Kathleen Blackham,
Thank you, President Dillon. I can see and hear.
Keith Holdsworth. Is Keith on today?
He is muted. Keith, can you unmute?
I unmuted myself 20 times and it finally took. Yes, I can see and hear.
Jeff York,
Thank you, President Dillon. I can see and hear.
Marlene,
Thank you, President Dillon. I can see and hear everyone.
Kyle Markley,
Thank you, President Dillon. I can see and hear.
Ben Crawford, Mickey Rogers, Ryan Hunt,
Thank you, President Dillon. I can see and hear.
Sheila Kinney,
Thank you. I can see and hear.
Thomas Moore.
Thank you, I can see and hear.
Did I miss any staff members?
President Dillon, this is Scarlett Martin. I'm also on.
Oh, I apologize, Executive Director.
No problem. Thank you.
Did I miss any other? Hearing none, let's move forward and go to the adoption of the minutes. Previously in your packet, you received the minutes from December 2nd of 2020. Are there any additions or deletions?
This is Michael. Yes, yes.
Okay, Nancy was talking. Since I hear no additions or deletions, I will accept a motion to approve by Bruns.
Bruns, so moved.
Thank you. Can Garver give me a second?
Garver seconds.
Let me call the roll. Blackburn.
Blackburn, aye.
Bruns.
Bruns, yes.
Garver.
Garver, aye.
Robinson.
Robinson, yes.
Schumacher.
Schumacher, yes.
Selm.
Selm, yes.
Westrick. Mindy. Dylan is a yes. I know Mindy's out there somewhere. Let me take a second before we move forward. I want to recognize two outstanding individuals who have decided to hang it up and retire. I wish I was joining you, but unfortunately, you're a lot better off than me. Let me first talk a little bit about Gib Craysville. He's Division Community Investment position. He's at the Compliance Monitor, and he's been with us for 6 years and has just done an excellent job. He's going to take some time and be with his family and Gib, we can't appreciate everything you've done for us. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I understand you are the historian of the Indy 500. I was going to ask you a tough question, who won the 72 race, but I don't know if you can hear me or not. But we certainly wish you the best and good luck to you. Secondly, Steve Schulmeyer. Man, I cannot believe you're retiring. Steve's been with us for 41 years consecutively. That's got to be an outstanding record. He's always been over a lot of the time in the real estate and economic development area as a senior project manager. He's actually had to put up with Jeff Hassler for all these years and has always had patience to help guide him through all these issues. But Steve, I can't say enough. What an outstanding career. The city of Indianapolis is so proud of you and thanks you. And the Department of Metropolitan Development also is going to miss your services with big shoes to fill. So good luck to both of you two. I'd like to give them all a round of applause, if we might, from the commission. Outstanding service. Secondly, I want to recognize quickly Sheila Kennedy. Sheila Kinney. Sheila did an outstanding job and has concluded negotiations on the IU Health project agreement, which enables that project, which we all know is about a $2 billion downtown project, to get moving. Sheila, great job in getting that accomplished. And Ryan Mann as well for that's just a big deal for the city of Indianapolis, and I'm glad it's over with, and you two did fine work. All right, let's move more to a formal part of the, yes?
I was having trouble with my mute button. I'd like to be recorded as voting in favor of the minutes. This is.
Thank you, Mindy. Mindy, please show as voting yes on the minutes. Welcome back. Moving forward, the legislature requires us every year, once a year, to have a TIF update for all of our taxing units. And I know Rusty Carr is going to work with Deputy Controller David Hortmiller to make that presentation. Rusty.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, Marlene. As President Dillon mentioned, myself serve as Chief Finance and Operations Officer for the Department of Metropolitan Development, and Deputy Controller Hortmiller for the Office of Finance and Management. So next slide, please. As President Dillon alluded, once each year we are required to come before you. This state statute change came down a few years ago, and present on some TIF updates, so relative to budget and the long-term plans for each allocation area or TIF. Next slide, please. So just like to start off with an extremely high level summary. And again, I think most of you are very familiar with this, but for the viewing public, tax increment financing or TIF is really a tool. It's a financing mechanism that can be used to overcome redevelopment obstacles that are not and are not likely to be overcome by the normal private market. So on this blue table to the right, you'll see things like environmental contamination, high cost of structured parking, public infrastructure as things that TIF funds can help offset to make a project feasible. So tax increment financing is the generation and the use of new property taxes by said redevelopment. So those new property taxes that are generated by the development, those property taxes then go directly to pay the cost of offsetting some of those obstacles like remediation and like structured parking and like infrastructure. So the dollars created from the TIF go back to overcome the barriers to the redevelopment itself. And the but-for test is this idea that but for the use of TIF or an incentive tool, the project is not feasible and would not otherwise happen. Next slide, please. So how is a TIF allocation area designated? How is a tax financing area designated? Well, again, I think this is no surprise to most of the commissioners, but first staff puts together a detailed economic development or redevelopment area plan and proposed boundaries for that area and an allocation area or a TIF area. So after all of that work, which is months and months of rigorous analysis by our team and back and forth conversations, we get to a point where we put this plan before the Metropolitan Development Commission. And if the MDC so agrees that an area is distressed and agrees with findings of fact, they can vote to approve this redevelopment area plan and the boundaries of the allocation or TIF area through a declaratory resolution. So if that is approved by the MDC, that moves into the City County Council. So the City County Council's Metropolitan Economic Development Committee would hear that proposal for a new TIF area, and then that would move to the full council for deliberation. If that was passed at the public hearing of the full council, that would then come back for one final public hearing vote to the Metropolitan Development Commission, which we call a confirmatory resolution. Next slide, please. So this slide really kind of depicts at a theoretical level how TIF funding works. So the first thing I really want to draw everyone's attention to is that the x-axis, the bottom line here, is our time. So this is time in years, and then our appraised value is the y-axis. And appraised value you can also think of as property tax revenue as kind of a supplement, as a substitute for that axis as well, if that's easier. So you'll see there's a gray area to the bottom there that says baseline property tax value. So upon a creation of a TIF, where you'll see Marlene's little hand right near that, at that day that a TIF is created and the MDC approves a declaratory resolution, there are certain taxes that are already going to units of government. So the library, the school corporation, the city in some instances. Those taxes that go to those units of government never go away over the life of a TIF. So whatever they were receiving in regular property taxes before the TIF, right before the TIF was created, they're going to continue to receive that amount at minimum over 25 years. So that is what you see as the baseline property tax value. So when the TIF is created, not long after, a project is probably going to be constructed. And so you're going to see this orange area called the tax increment. So these are the funds that are captured. These are the property taxes from the new development that is captured separately and then used to pay off the costs that I mentioned earlier, such as environmental remediation, such as structured parking. So at the end, this termination line, at the end of 25 years, which is how long a TIF is alive for, at the end of that 25 years, all of that orange area is then released back to the base property value. So all of the base taxing units then see the benefit of that development moving forward. So again, for that 25 years, they're receiving the baseline property tax values, and then after the TIF is expired, they will receive the increased amount from the new development. Next slide, please. And then my final slide is just talking about the long-term plans. And so the long-term plans of the TIF have not changed, of TIFs have not changed since we have provided this presentation, and has been consistent across years, which we would hope would be, given that they're long-term plans. So, and I think much of what Deputy Controller Hortemiller will reflect in the budget and the spending really reflects these long-term plans. So public infrastructure, there's been no shortage of that. Park development or infrastructure rebuilding in our right-of-ways. Environmental remediation, such as projects like the PR Mallory campus. Workforce development with our numerous community partners. Surely you have seen no shortage of affordable and workforce housing projects come through the commission, and then certainly the catalytic redevelopment projects like Riverside High School or the Phoenix Theater or the various other projects that flow through your all pipeline. So these will continue to be our focus areas moving forward, and I hope that you'll see that reflected in some of the expenses that Deputy Controller Hortemiller alludes to. And I think with that, I am going to turn it over to him.
Thank you, Rusty. Again, David Hortemiller, Deputy Controller in the Office of Finance and Management. Our office administers the budgeting aspects of the TIF district. So I'm going to start off with the TIF budgets for 2019. And similar to last year, we actually elected to once again do a one-pager because there's about 18 different TIFs that had either revenue and or expenses for 2019. So that one-pager details by district the total amount of expenditures, both debt service and non-debt service, as well as the total amount of revenues. In addition to that, we also wanted to talk a little bit about the expenditure categories of total spend. So if looking at the one pager and combining total expenditures for 2019, which across all TIF districts, City of Indianapolis TIFs, 2019 total revenues was about $110 million compared to, it looks like we have the one pager coming up here, compared to a total amount of expenses of about $102 million. So total change in fund balance of about $8 million. But to break down the total expenditures for everybody, just to get a general sense of what are the dollars being spent on, what is the budget going toward. And so probably at no surprise is the fact that debt service in 2019 was about 73% of the total $102 million of expenditures, followed by infrastructure at about 14.5%, tourism at about 7.8%, being the third largest, and then workforce development or training grants at 3%. I also want to note here, as it relates to budgets and all of these expenditures, each item, aside from debt service, is approved on a resolution basis by this body. The debt service, the annual principal and interest payments, those are in essence approved at the time of the issuance of the bond. So those do not come before the body on an annual basis to appropriate per se, but of course, part of the overall total expenditures of the TIF districts. Next slide. So as Rusty noted earlier in the requirements of the presentation, we are required to talk a little bit about the impact to local taxing units. And so when we talk about the impact to local taxing units, we believe that there's two different ways to look at this. And so we tried to create some sort of visual or graphic here on this slide that depicts those two different theories or methodologies to view the impact of taxing units. The first one, the first gray bar, really depicts what we like to think is the but-for test that Rusty mentioned earlier, which is to say that if the TIF truly passed the but-for test when creating that tax increment financing district, then the impact on the taxing units would be zero because, again, as he went into detail earlier, that investment wouldn't be there and that assessed value wouldn't be there. Therefore, no impact to the taxing unit if it truly passed that but-for test. The second gray bar then depicts what we would say is, really a hypothetical scenario to say that, well, if one believed that the investment would have occurred without the TIF spending, then in 2019, we show what would essentially be a range, anywhere between $0 and $58.1 million. We calculate the $58.1 million because that is just a straight modeling of the release of all increment assessed value from 2019 back to the base. So again, that's why we say it's a hypothetical situation or scenario. If we were to model it out, so many things change along this variable scale due to the many factors that go into AV calculations, such as abatements, deductions, exemptions, which all play back into rates. So that is to say that when we do talk in terms of this range, this impact is all potentially felt on units by way of circuit breaker relief, if indeed that TIF district did not exist or $58 million was released to the base. So once again, our one-pager does outline this by taxing units. So that is to say that the $58 million is spread across all taxing units in Marion County. The city, just to kind of summarize, the city's budget actually leads the way in terms of the impact. So that impact on the city would be about $23 million, followed by the school districts with an aggregate total of about $22 million. The delta then between the 58 and the 45 is going to be the other townships and smaller taxing units. Lastly, I think it's important that when we do talk about the impact of taxing units and the creation of TIFs, it's important to just note that simply the creation of a TIF in and of itself does not affect current revenues of a taxing district. So immediately upon creation, there is no adverse effect to taxing units. Next slide, please. We wanted to make sure that we provided the resource that one can go to find all the information that is certainly on the one pager that both Rusty and myself talked about today. The state's DLGF Gateway TIF Viewer is an excellent resource that basically puts all the information that we submit on an annual basis. There's an annual report that the OFM submits before April 15th every year. So in 2021, we'll submit the 2020 report showing a little bit more detail behind the revenues, the expenses for each TIF district. There's also information online as it relates to the number of parcels, expiration dates, creation dates, and total assessed value within each of the TIF districts. So again, we have the URL online or on this slide here for one's reference. And with that, that concludes today's presentation. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Any questions on the TIF information from members of the commission? Rusty, I would suggest you send that presentation out to each commission member if you would, please.
Absolutely.
Hearing no questions, let's move forward to the resolutions part of our meeting. Nancy, will you read all the resolutions into the minutes?
Yes, thank you, President Dillon and commissioners. Resolution number 2020-R059 authorizes DMD to convey title of 27 properties to Renew Indianapolis Incorporated for the sales prices listed on Exhibit A of the resolution in consideration of certain commitments to be made by Renew for the purpose of providing neighborhood redevelopment. Resolution number 2020-R060 authorizes and approves an expenditure of unobligated funds on deposit in the Consolidated Redevelopment Allocation Fund in an amount not to exceed $200,000 to reimburse the consolidated city for improvements to the city market. Resolution number 2020A-043 for public hearing approves the final economic revitalization area for Novartis Manufacturing LLC located at 8520 Challenger Drive, Council District 20 and 22, Decatur Township. Recommends approval of 10 years real property tax abatement. Resolution number 2020A-044 for public hearing approves the final economic revitalization area for Novartis Manufacturing LLC located at 8520 Challenger Drive, Council District 20 and 22. Decatur Township recommends approval of 10 years personal property tax abatement. Resolution number 2020P010 appoints hearing officers, members of the boards of zoning appeals, and members of the Plat Committee for 2021. Resolution number 2019-HP002 for public hearing. Request to adopt historic area preservation plan for Drake Apartment Building as part of the comprehensive plan of Marion County, Indiana. This ends the reading of the resolutions.
Thank you, Nancy. Let's move the three resolutions that do not need a public hearing today. 2020 R059, 2020 R060, and 2020 P010. Nancy, show me recused from 2020 R060, please.
Will do.
I will accept the motion from Commissioner Schumacher to approve those three.
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Selm, can I get a second?
So moved. Second.
I'll now call the roll. Blackburn.
Blackburn, aye.
Bruns.
Bruns, yes.
Garver.
Garver, aye.
Robinson.
Robinson, yes.
Schumacher.
Schumacher, yes.
Selm.
Selm, yes.
Westrick.
Westrick, yes.
Dillon is a yes with the recusal on 2020 R060. Nancy, did you get that?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Let's move forward to our first public hearing. Resolution number 2020A-043 is being held for public hearing today. It approves a final economic revitalization area for Novartis Manufacturing LLC, which is located at 8520 Challenger Drive, Council District number 2022, down in Decatur Township. It recommends approval of a 10-year real property tax abatement. Is there anyone on the call today who would like to make comments on this resolution?
President Dillon, we have one person and he has since dropped off, but we have picked up 4 new call-in users. Can I take a moment to check those?
Yes, ma'am.
Call-in users, if you're calling by telephone, I'm going to unmute you. You will hear a beep. And please tell us your name and which case you're here for and whether you're in support or against.
This is Stefano Piantoni. I'm here as support to the Novartis AAA manufacturing site. The connection was spotty, so I keep on falling off and keep on reconnecting. Apologize.
President Dillon, he is here for this case.
Does he have any comments besides being supportive?
No comments, thank you.
Thank you for showing your support. Linda, anybody else on this matter?
That is all.
Thank you very much. Does staff have any comments on this matter?
Thank you, President Dillon. None at this time.
Thank you. Who was that, please? Is that Ryan?
DMD, that's right.
Thank you, Ryan. Before us, members of the commission, is resolution number 2020A-043. Commissioner Garver, I'll accept a motion to approve.
So moved.
Commissioner Robinson, can I get a second?
Robinson, second.
I'll now call the roll. Blackburn,
Blackburn, yes.
Bruns,
Bruns, yes.
Garver,
Garver, yes.
Robinson,
Robinson, yes.
Schumacher, Rose.
Schumacher, yes.
Thank you. Selm,
yes.
Westrick,
Westrick, yes.
Dillon's a yes. It passes 8-0. The second resolution for public hearing is 2020A-044. It's a sister to 043. Approves a final economic revitalization area for Novartis Manufacturing LLC, located at 8520 Challenger Drive, Council District number 20 and 22, over in Decatur Township. Recommends approval of a 10-year personal property tax abatement. Is there anyone on who would like to comment?
We do not have anyone.
Thank you. Staff, do you have any comments?
Thank you, President Dillon. Ryan Hunt, DMD. As in the case of the other petition, we do recommend approval.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the commission? Hearing none. Commissioner Robinson, can I get a motion to approve 2020A-044?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Selm, can I get a second?
Second, Selm.
Thank you. I'll call the roll. Blackburn,
Blackburn, yes.
Bruns,
Bruns, yes.
Garver,
Garver, yes.
Robinson,
Robinson, yes.
Schumacher,
Schumacher, yes.
Selm,
yes.
Westrick,
Westrick, yes.
Dillon is a yes. It passes 8-0. Let's move forward to our next public hearing, number 2019 HP002. This is the infamous request to adopt the historic area preservation plan for the Drake apartment building as part of the comprehensive plan of Marion County, Indiana. As I promised Commissioner Selm, we're going to vote this come hell or high water. Now, I understand that we have a remonstrator on the phone. Under the rules of engagement on resolutions, the remonstrator will take the lead and have 10 minutes to give their position. And then in this case, the petitioner being staff, I'll come to staff and they'll have 10 minutes. And then there is no other back and forth, and then we will vote it after questions. So I understand Attorney Oaks is on the phone. Is that correct, Linda?
That is correct. I'm unmuting him now.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, President Dillon, members of the Metropolitan Development Commission. This is Tim Oaks. Here on behalf of the Children's Museum.
Do you hear the rules of engagement?
Yes, I was anticipating 15 minutes because of the provisions of Indiana Code 36711.1 6I, which indicate that the proceedings for approval of the plan are done in accordance with the rules for adoption of a text amendment to the zoning ordinance that have been adopted by the Metropolitan Development Commission, which provides for 15 minutes.
I appreciate that, Counselor, but we're going to move to Rule 10, which is 10 minutes on the resolution.
All right.
You have 10 minutes to present your case. You're on the clock.
Right. Thank you. President, members of the commission, I'll start then very quickly by introducing Linda Weintraut, PhD. She's the president of Weintraut and Associates, who's been dealing with historic preservation in central Indiana for 25 years. And Linda should be on the line.
on the line. Am I muted? No. Okay.
No, we can hear you.
Okay, good. My firm was asked to provide information and recommendations relevant to the designation of resources within the Drake Apartments historic area boundary. The parcel contains about 0.8 acre of land and includes the Drake apartment building, a detached partially demolished garage, a private modern drive, and an outdoor exhibit space. Historically, this was part of the North Park addition, platted around 1900. And the Drake's parcel includes lot 16 and portions of lots 6 and 7. The Drake itself is an 8-story Tudor Revival style building clad in red brick veneer with limestone and tile accents. The garage is a 1-story industrial style garage constructed to the west behind the Drake around the same time as the apartment building. At the time the garage was constructed, or shortly thereafter, a non-symmetrical wing was built to the west. That wing is not extant. This addition represented about 30% of the building's square footage, and it is gone. The garage itself has concrete block walls covered in parge. It does not carry the same design materials or architectural style as the Drake and is now used as storage. The far western portion of the parcel includes a modern private drive and portions of an outdoor exhibit space associated with the sports legend experience. The Drake has been identified by IHPC as significant for its architecture, its association with architect Henry Ziegler Dietz, and its association with the Indianapolis apartments of the 20th century. It is a luxury, or it was a luxury tower apartment, and part of the local trend of multi-resident building along North Meridian Street. The garage was a multi-car functional building tailored to the specific needs of automobile maintenance and storage. It was built in concrete and steel because it could be constructed quickly, and it was fireproof. It would not have been a unique it was not unique for the garage to have been associated with an apartment building in this era. And its construction is not unique either. It was set away from the primary residence and the street and was not incorporated aesthetically into the landscape of the apartment building itself. Over the years, significantly, the garage has undergone structural and unsympathetic alterations to reinforce the structure. As I said earlier, a portion of the building was demolished between 2016 and 2017. A garage door was cut into the southwest corner of the building and then closed, and the original garage doors are not in evidence. In some, it's an altered example of a simple garage. With the rear wing extension, it would have lacked balance and design of the Drake itself. Without the rear wing extension, 30% of it is gone, so it no longer presents its historic footprint. Neither the garage nor the western parcel with its modern construction conveys an association with the Drake's architecture. Both were identified in the boundary of the historic area boundary by IHPC. My firm postulates that the history of the Drake is not enhanced by the existing garage, the private modern drive, or by the sports legend experience, and recommends it would be appropriate to amend the historic area boundary to exclude the modern areas and the partially demolished garage. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. And then Tom, are you on? If you could just do a minute real quick on a summary of your analysis.
Yes, I'm here. Tom Leahy, structural engineer with American Structure Point. I was brought in to provide a professional opinion regarding the overall structural condition of the garage at the Drake. I found it to be an overall fair to poor condition. Primary concern being the roof structure. Observed a considerable amount of deterioration from long-term water infiltration. and observed some potential structural deficiencies with a recently repaired area of the roof structure. I recommended replacing the existing roof structure, pretty much all the wood components down to the steel frame. Again, I was involved only with the garage assessment, and that's about all I have.
All right, thank you, Tom. I'll finish up. And what's before the commission today is a proposed historic district plan that would become enforceable and be part of the comprehensive plan if approved. We disagree with the Office of Corporations Counsel's position that this is already a done deal, that the adoption of the declaratory resolution by IHPC already makes this an historic district that is under the control of IHPC. And if you stop for a second and think about it, it makes sense. IHPC understandably and appropriately deals only with historic structures, and it does so oftentimes to the exclusion of other interests and factors, which is the job of the Metropolitan Development Commission. You can and should consider how this fits in the master plan for the city and all the issues that come with that, including, but certainly not limited to, historic preservation. This isn't just a question of whether the Drake building itself is historically or architecturally significant, but whether the architectural or historic significance, when put in context and weighed against the other land use factors that are part of a comprehensive plan, merit the protection that would be afforded by the adoption of the historic plan. These factors can and should include a desire to support the expansion of the Children's Museum because of the benefits that it extends to the vitality of the neighborhood, the desire to avoid boxing in the Children's Museum, to encourage a world-class museum, and the growth and attractiveness of the museum and its role in tourism and our convention industry, which is so vital to the city of Indianapolis. First, I want to reiterate very quickly what Linda and Tom said, which is this historic district, which was rushed and put together very quickly, includes a building and property that frankly should not be part of this project. And in fact, part of the western portion of the real estate actually sits underneath the sports programming portion of the existing Indianapolis Children's Museum. The Children's Museum has been part of the Indianapolis area for 95 years. It typically, at least pre-COVID, had over 1.2 million visitors annually. It's world renowned. We as the citizens of Indianapolis take great pride in it, and we should. When the property adjacent to it became available, the Children's Museum bought it at significant expense. And it's fair to say, had it been part of an historic preservation district, when it came up for sale, the Children's Museum would not have purchased it. Having to deal with this now after they've spent the money to buy it is kind of like having the rug pulled out from under you. The core function of the Children's Museum as a museum is to preserve and memorialize our history and cultural achievements, and to teach, encourage, and excite children and families to appreciate the world and our history. The Children's Museum does this, and it transforms the lives of the children and families that visit. When they initially looked at this building and considered demolishing it, they did not do so lightly. They weighed the loss of the Drake against the benefits to be achieved in the furtherance of their mission. And we think that that consideration and that determination, all things considered, is best left in the hands of the Children's Museum. We believe that the benefits of not putting the property into an historic district and allowing the Children's Museum the best opportunity to incorporate this property into its campus and its programming would result in more good to the community and the preservation of a property which is economically unfeasible and would constitute a significant drain on the resources of the Children's Museum, who bought this before any such restraint was put onto the property.
Chancellor, you've reached your time. You've burned the shot clock. Do we have questions from members of the commission for Remonstrators Council? Hearing none, Councilor, stay available. I may come back to you with a couple questions. I want to go to staff now, who has 10 minutes in the role of...
Alpha, did you have your hand up?
I'm sorry, sir?
I can wait.
Oh, I'm sorry, Alpha. I didn't see it. Go ahead and ask your question.
My question goes to whether or not the action we would take today would allow the museum to proceed with perhaps demolition of the Drake, because it would in some way diminish their ability to do what has been referred to the higher interest perhaps of the community in their opinion, and the fact that they had already put money into purchasing it.
Sure, I can speak to that. So at this time, the IHBC would be the body of which that would hear a request for demolition. The owners of the property can apply for a certificate of appropriateness and have a public hearing.
Councilor Oaks, do you have an opinion of that?
I do not agree with that, to be frank. And I've had exchanged emails and a memo with the Office of Corporation Counsel. Honestly, the statute makes it pretty clear that starting 90 days after the original adoption of the declaratory resolution, the protections afforded to this property went away. Now, having said that, obviously, nothing has been demolished, and as reasons for the continuances that have occurred over this past year are associated with an effort in conjunction with the city to try to find someone that could rehab and utilize the Drake building itself. And we wanted to get to the end of that process before this hearing, because we think it would be an indication as to whether or not the building can even be used in an economically beneficial manner. And to adopt a plan when we don't know that, when in fact we think it may not be economical, is simply a situation where the Children's Museum would be saddled with a burden of maybe several $100,000 a year in maintenance and upkeep that, quite frankly, especially with COVID, it just can't afford.
All right, stand by. Any other questions from the remonstrators? Yes, Alpha.
Has the opportunity for purchase of such a developer for the Drake to include purchase from the museum as part of their proposal for the Drake?
Those and Brian Statz, who I believe is also on the call, might be able to lend further color to this because he's been directly involved. But first, I want to start by publicly thanking Councilor Osley, who has participated in some of those discussions. To my understanding, those discussions have not concluded and are really the hang-up is that the identified was a lengthy process involving a request for proposal. The identified developer, which is a local developer, Van Roy, they need a certain amount of assistance through economic development with the city, and we have not been able to arrive at a package that makes the project viable. But I do not think the conclusion that those discussions have concluded completely.
Any other questions for the remonstrator?
President Dillon, if I may, just to add a little bit of context to that. This is Jeff Hasser, Administrator of Real Estate and Economic Development. My team worked closely with Brian and the Children's Museum on that RFI. I can pull it up, but I believe we had structured it as, just to clarify, not as a purchase, but as a lease of the property, a long-term lease of the property. So just to clarify that. And the Children's Museum or Brian is welcome to comment or add context as well.
Yeah, that is correct, but it is just a little more. It's a long-term lease that would have been financeable to allow the redevelopment. And as part of that deal, the Children's Museum's annual rent would have been nominal, something along the lines of $10 a year after all of its investment. And that simply would have allowed the Drake to stay and be redeveloped. That effort was entered into with, at least by the Children's Museum, certainly with the utmost good faith.
Any final questions for the remonstrator?
Yeah, I have a question for Meg and also then for the remonstrator.
Go ahead and hit the remonstrator, Bill.
Right. I don't know. I think it was announced yesterday that the Bottle Works had its grand opening, which is down on Mass Ave. And that was a building that was probably seen as a goner as well until it got into the right hands, and it's being fully redeveloped with multi-million-dollar investment. And when the Children's Museum was on the site, what the Children's Museum did was tear down 2 mansions to build its present plant. And I think the thinking was in the 70s was that was all slum or something. And that's not the case today. There's been a lot of money invested in rehabilitation of the apartments across the way. And I lived in the Drake, and it was a luxury apartment. I moved there in 1983, and it was very well taken care of. I looked at it yesterday, and you said they're not doing any demolition. It's a type of demolition by neglect. There are a number of windows that are open, window panes that are open, so it's open to the elements. So there's been a type of demolition taking place just by neglect. So the question is Indianapolis has seen a lot of saving of hopeless buildings and being rehabilitated and being the pride of the community. And that Drake is a real landmark there along Meridian Street, and it's become an eyesore from the process of demolition by neglect. So I just don't know how the Children's Museum is wondering about this isn't the 70s anymore, the 1970s I'm talking about, not the 1870s. And I just don't think they're really having a good think about this. And then my question to Meg, well, okay, go ahead. If you want to respond to that, then I have a question for Meg at IHPC.
Okay, we'll go there next. Counselor, stand by, please, as I have a question that I need answered when I come back to you. Of which, where in the hell have you been? This has been going on since 2019, so I'll give you a few minutes for you to think that through so you can answer that for me. But let's move on to staff. I know Mark Dellis, perhaps Bill Brown, and for sure I want to hear from Lynette Pierce from staff on this matter. Who's going to take the lead, please?
President Dillon and commissioners, this is Bill Brown, president of the Indianapolis Historic Preservation Commission. I'm happy to lead off here.
Welcome, Bill. We're glad to have you. Please be conscious your group's got 10 minutes on the shot clock, so go.
My comments will be brief, John. I think that it should be noted that, in October of 2019, we passed a resolution to make the Drake a historic district. And the reason for that was that we were very concerned about its ability to be maintained and taken care of. As Bill Selm just pointed out, it's an extremely important asset along North Meridian. And we felt that we had to take action because clearly it was being neglected and would easily have fallen to the demolition ball rather quickly. So we felt it was important as a commission to bring this issue forward, which is why it's before all of you today. We certainly understand that the garage may in fact not be as historic as the original building. It doesn't have the same character, but at the same time, when we create historic districts, we often have outbuildings and various other appurtenances on property that we dealt with as a part of a renovation. So we're not unfamiliar with dealing with an item like that as the case would come before us. And as Meg outlined, we have a very public process that we have available for a property so it can be improved upon and taken care of and done in the proper way. And the commission reviews those on a monthly basis. And so we're very able to handle this project should it come forward for a renovation. This building, without a doubt, many like it have been renovated, as Bill pointed out, naming the Bottle Works project, but there are other examples that are very germane and similar to the Drake that have in fact been renovated and put back into service and back on the tax rolls of the city. So I think that we would like the MDC Commission to act on this. There's been a lot of continuances and delays to get to this point, and we would just ask for your approval of this going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Stand by. I may have a question for you afterwards, but just a quick comment. Your commitment and service to the Historic Preservation Commission has been outstanding, and I just want to recognize you. Thank you, sir. Who's next on the staff, please? Meg, are you going, or who's up?
So, sure, I'm happy to offer some comments. So thank you again for giving us a chance to speak here. I'm going to let Leonette Pierce speak to some of the statutory questions, but I wanted to remind everyone that the debate over the significance or the boundaries of the property is a matter that should be had in front of the IHPC. Again, as a reminder, we're simply asking for the MDC to adopt the plan into the comprehensive plan. And with that, I would like for Leonette Pierce to answer any questions with regards to the statute and any clarifications on that.
Thanks, Meg. Leonette, you can start with the fact we've got a disagreement of whether the building is actually historical or not up until we vote. There's a lot of confusion on that matter, and I got to tell you, I'm not getting a consistent answer, so you may comment on that.
Okay, can you hear me? This is Leonette.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I will say that the statute is not 100% clear, but when you look through, there are provisions in the ITC statute that talk about the proposed plan and adoption and things like that. However, you have to rely on a legal tenet called home rule that says that if a statute has given one person or one entity the power to do something, another entity does not have that power to do it either, to do that. So the legislative body, the state legislature, has given IHPC the power to designate and to determine what in our jurisdiction is of historic or architectural significance. And you have that power. I apologize. IHPC has that power. The MDC does not. What the MDC's role in this process is adopting that plan that IHPC has gone through and looked at, and they've gone through and determined that it was of historical significance. They have added this property to the county register of historic places already. So it's already registered as a county historic place. And your job is just to adopt it, as Megan said, as part of the comprehensive plan. There is language that makes it not very clear. I would add, though, however, that there are not other historic districts that require the planning commission to adopt their historic area plans. And it wouldn't make a lot of sense for IHPC to be any different from there. So if you take the Children's Museum's position that it doesn't become designated until you all approve the plan, then you then have the power to not designate something. And as I said, you don't have that power. You have the power to adopt it as part of the comprehensive plan. You have no other dealings with respect to what happens when something is designated, other than saying whether or not it's part of the conflicts with part of the comprehensive plan. So, and I think Alpha had asked a question about whether or not, if I may be misphrasing this, but whether or not once it got adopted, they would still be able to make determinations with respect to demolition or modifications. And that can happen, but it would happen in front of the Historic Preservation Commission and not in front of you guys. I am available to answer any other questions.
Thank you. Does Mark Dallas want to comment?
Yes, please. Thank you, President Dillon and commissioners. Indiana Landmarks, my employer, 1201 Central Avenue here in Indianapolis. We would just like to speak in support of the request of the Indianapolis Historic Preservation Commission to have this preservation plan adopted by the Metropolitan Development Commission. Indiana Landmarks has been involved in this on sort of 3 different levels for a number of years. We were asked by the Children's Museum to sit on a committee years ago to look at a possible adaptive use of the Drake. So when Mr. says that this is something that's happening suddenly, we have certainly been involved with this with the Children's Museum for years, always encouraging this building's adaptive use so that it didn't, as Commissioner Selm noted, become a demolition by neglect situation. But here we are. We also hold a preservation easement, which is a legal document on the property that the Children's Museum owns immediately to the south of the Drake, which is called the Schnell Rau House, which gives us a legal interest in what happens to the property immediately adjacent, immediate to the north, the Drake. And so we are very interested to see this building stay. And while a great deal of time was spent by the remonstrators on the condition and significance of the garage, that is really something that, as was just noted, that the Children's Museum could always come back later to the Indianapolis Historic Preservation Commission, and if warranted, they could review and approve a demolition of an outbuilding, as they have in other cases that they have reviewed. So this building, I've been a professional in this field for 30 plus years. It is a historic building. It is significant. It should be recognized and incorporated in the comprehensive plan, and we would encourage you to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Jeff, do you have comments?
I do, sir. Thank you. So I just wanted to speak a little bit in terms of from a development perspective and as it relates to this RFI very briefly in the last 2 minutes. So I do think we do have a way to kind of get to a financial feasibility for this. This is a project that we have looked at from a variety of financing sources and abilities to try to get a way for this project to done because we're passionate about it and the historic preservation. I think we've seen with projects like PR Mallory that we've been able to combine and be creative with resources and ultimately provide a building that, some to earlier points were viewed as potentially being lost and turned them into huge assets for the neighborhood that can be a piece of pride for those neighborhoods. In addition, we continue to want to work with the Children's Museum on this project. Obviously, we view them as a partner, working hand in hand on the RFI with Brian Statz, as was referenced earlier. We also think that, long-term ownership as a long-term lease, as was provided in the RFI, was the structure, but we also had interest from one of the respondents in ownership of the structure. So if it's no longer viewed as a viable option, I think we could look at ownership options as well. In addition, I also think that movement on this is key. Again, as referenced earlier, elements are playing a factor currently, and the longer we take to move towards redevelopment, the more money it is potentially costing everyone involved in order to make sure to rehab. So maintenance, addressing these issues sooner rather than later is going to be key to making sure the project goes forward, but also ensuring that costs don't become completely burdened to the project. Thank you.
Jeff, thank you. I need Mark to come back on, reintroduce himself, spell his name and his group, please.
Yes, I am Mark Dollasi, Dollase. I work for Indiana Landmarks. That is at 1201 Central Avenue in Indianapolis, Indiana, 46202.
Thank you, Mark. We've hit the end of our time. Is that the end of your testimony, Jeff, and your team?
Yes, I believe so. I don't think we have anyone else that would need to comment.
I have a couple questions, and I'm sure some other members of the commission do. Other members of the commission have comments or questions?
I do. I was wondering if our board council agreed with the legal interpretation supplied by Ms. Pierce.
Who's that, Mindy? Thank you, Mindy.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Westrick. Since you have two attorneys providing opposing viewpoints on this issue, I don't think it's my place to weigh in on the side of either one. In this case, you'll have to just rely on the interpretation of Mr. Oakes and the interpretation of Ms. Pierce.
Other questions?
I have a question, and I'm concerned about coming in the building going into this next winter, because I see, the windows are open, and that's again contributing to demolition by neglect to make the building absolutely horrible and atrocious and bad looking, and then throwing up your hands and saying, well, it can't be saved. So I'm concerned about the building going into another winter. So what's the owner going to do about that, acting in good faith with this process?
Jeff?
I'll try to answer that question the best I can. Again, I think Brian's on the call, so he might be able to add in. Since we've had ownership, since the Children's Museum has had ownership of that property.
Tim, please identify yourself.
Tim Oakes, attorney at Ice Miller for the Children's Museum.
Thank you.
Yep. Since they've owned the property, one of the issues that they've had is actually vandalism. A number of the windows have been broken out, and people throwing rocks through windows and such. And I don't know if the open windows that you're referring to are a result of that, or literally it's someone has just opened up the window. But certainly to the extent a window can be shut because it hasn't been damaged, that will occur. Windows that have been blown out are damaged because of vandalism have been boarded up to my information. And if that's not happening, I'm not aware of that.
Bill, you're on mute, sir.
I observed yesterday that the top floor on the south side, there's a number of broken panes. So that's open to the birds, open to the wind, open to the rain and snow. And so anyway, I looked at all four sides of the building, and there were some other issues as well. So it'd be nice if they could keep an eye on things.
Yeah, I believe the Children's Museum has been keeping an eye, but as you might imagine, it's an ongoing battle in the sense that some of the windows on the lower floors, I think, were the first ones that were vandalized. Those got boarded up. I don't know when Which sounds like that was more vandals. I don't know when that occurred, but those will get boarded up.
I hope so. Thank you.
Can I get Bill Brown back on, please?
Yes, President Dillon.
Bill, I hold your opinion in high regard, and I have a very direct question. I also have toured the facility over the weekend. I am certainly not a historical buff, but I have a decent eye for real estate. And there's no question in my mind, and I think Commissioner Sullivan would agree, it is not in very good shape. Do you believe the building can be rehabbed?
Yes, I do. We've been involved, my firm that I head up, in many preservation projects. I have personally witnessed being able to take projects like this and solve them at an economical level for various developers. In IHPC, in my capacity of overseeing properties, we have seen many properties, and Mark DeLassy can speak to this from Indiana Landmark's perspective, that you wouldn't believe could have been saved and turned back into viable, economically producing properties. So there's no question that we've seen buildings in much, much worse condition than this. They can be turned around and ultimately become viable. So it absolutely is the answer.
Thank you, Bill. That concludes our testimony, both from remonstrators and, in this matter, petitioners. Commissioner Westrick, I'm with you. I have an open question on the different attorney opinions on whether it's historical, when it becomes historical, and that's going to be some research that I'm going to have done going down the road here. As much out of curiosity, because I can't seem to get a straight question from anybody, a straight answer from anybody.
President Dillon, as a follow-up, could I ask Jeff Hasser another question?
Who's speaking, please?
This is Commissioner Westrick.
Absolutely, you may.
This is a difficult resolution in front of us, Jeff, and I'm just kind of curious on why we're not seeing some more middle ground and some leadership from the city on this. I can understand the Children's Museum's position. I can understand the position of IHCPA, but why has it taken more than a year and we haven't made any progress whatsoever?
Yeah, I can speak to a little bit about that. And, you know, I think in the nature of community development projects, one time you just have to be patient. And the second is that even with the best people, best of intentions, you know, sometimes it takes a lot of time to get everyone rowing in the same direction. I think I can speak a little bit to the PR Mallory project because it is finished and has become an amazing project. But that took a long time to get everything lined up. And the advantages we had for that was obviously, you know, a new market tax credit allocation. We had ownership of the site, all these things that are still, we're able to kind of play in a hand and still move forward. With this project, I think the Children's Museum would agree that the pandemic definitely played a role in the delay of these projects and kind of getting it started. I think part of it was the negotiations. It is definitely a little bit unique in our end of working a lot more on the front end with the ownership and the Children's Museum and the development entity like Van Roy that was referenced. So this is definitely something that is a unique situation and requires a lot more work to get to it. And, you know, the historic nature definitely makes it something that we have to work hand in hand with IHBC and Meg's team as well. So I think you're getting a little bit of a look of just a lot of the things behind the scenes for community development in order to get some of these bigger projects across the finish line. I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't or you have additional, I'm happy to answer any follow-up.
Well, I may jump in as well, Commissioner Westrick. I think it's a very good question, and perhaps shame on your president of the commission for giving too much time for this thing to be negotiated, lesson learned, and perhaps we need to bring these things to a head sooner. So please count me in as trying to be patient through this, but as we've told Commissioner Sum, this thing's getting voted today. Members of the commission, we have before you 2019 HP 002. It's been debated, it's been researched. We understand there's varying opinions, but I'm going to ask Commissioner Bruns to make a motion to approve.
Bruns, so moved.
Can I get Garber to second?
Garber seconds.
A yes passes the resolution, a no defeats the resolution. I'll now call the roll. Blackburn.
Blackburn, yes.
Bruns.
Bruns, yes.
Garber.
Garber, yes.
Robinson.
Robinson, yes.
Schumacher.
Schumacher, no.
Commissioner Selm.
Selm, yes.
Westrick.
Westrick, no.
Dillon, with a lot of questions in his mind, is going to vote yes. The count is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yes, 2 no's. Resolution 2019 HP 002 passes 6-2. Moving forward, let's go to our section of withdrawals, continuances, and special requests. Do we have any, Linda, that are coming forward?
Yes, we do. I'm going to unmute Skylar Sullivan.
I'm sorry, who are you unmuting?
Skylar Sullivan.
Okay.
Good afternoon, President. How are you? And members of the commission. Skylar Sullivan with offices at 618 East Market Street. Here on petition 2020 CZN 828/2020 CBR 828, asking to be continued to the January 6th hearing of 2021.
Yep, could you start over? I missed your, oh, here we go. CZN, so this is the Summit Street matter.
Yes, President Dillon.
And the reason for the continuance, sir?
We're continuing to work with staff through our commitments. We've been going back and forth, including our client, to attempt to come to a resolution of a between staff, our client, and us, between all the commitments.
Comments from staff?
Thank you, President Dillon. Kathleen Blackham here. The staff will not object to this continuance, but will not support any other continuances beyond the January 6, 2021 hearing.
Thank you. Continuance is going to be hard to come by today, but let's go ahead and take a long look at giving this, and staff's on board. I'll accept the motion. We move 2020 CZN 828 and 2020 CVR 828 to be continued to the January 6th, 2020 meeting. Do I have a motion by Robinson to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Schumacher, can I get a second?
Schumacher seconds.
I'll now call the roll. Blackburn.
Blackburn, yes.
Bruns.
Bruns, yes.
Garber.
Garber, yes.
Robinson.
Robinson, yes.
Schumacher.
Schumacher, yes.
Selm.
Selm, yes.
Westrick.
Westrick, yes.
Dillon is a yes. It passes 8-0 and will be heard January 6, 2021. And as Bill Selm says, come hell or high water, we're going to hear it. Any other continuances?
Yes, President Dillon, we have Michael Stoya.
Michael, welcome. What's your matter?
Hello, Mr. President. My name's Michael Stoya. I live at 7617 Trotter Road, representing Trotter Road Neighborhood Association. Our president, Herb Bazemore, has recently suffered a stroke, and I asked for his prayers for him and his family for a speedy recovery. We are here to ask for a continuance for 2020 CZN 834, 2020 CVR 834. Our organization was just recently made aware of the dramatic change in the proposal from the petitioner, and we have only had one opportunity to meet with a representative of the petitioner, and we are asking for 3-4 years now. You're probably well aware that the Decatur Township Civic Council and we all have remonstrated against this industrial type development on the south side of State Road 67. In the course of the last 2 weeks, the day after Thanksgiving, there was an emergency land use meeting called to inform the land use committee and disseminate information that the proposal has now being approved, and the petitioner has made some dramatic changes to the conceptual site plan. We've only had one opportunity to speak with them, and with the course of going through this pandemic and in the midst of the holidays, I'm requesting that our organization, we're a registered neighborhood organization with the city of Indianapolis, just like the Civic Council, that we have an opportunity. Our organization is actually more greatly impacted by this industrial development. We're abutting this proposed development, and we would ask that you grant us a continuance to one and only, but grant us a continuance for just cause to the January 20th meeting, so that we can have further discussions and have more input into the development with the petitioner. I also want to mention, I submitted an Exhibit A to everyone. I hope everyone's had an opportunity to read that ahead of time, to review that document, to better further explain. I don't want to take up any more time at this point, but if we can get this one continuance to the 20th, I think it will benefit the community greatly. Thank you.
Michael, thanks for your input. This thing's been discussed and debated to death, and we've told everybody we plan on moving forward today for a hearing. Staff, are you ready to go, and do you have any comments on this?
This is Keith Holdsworth. I'm the planner assigned to this petition. Staff is prepared to go forward today, although we have no objection to the continuance.
Is the petitioner ready, Keith, to go forward today?
It's my understanding the petitioner is ready.
And there's a city councilman involved, and he's ready to move forward today. Is that correct, Keith?
That's my understanding.
To the members of the commission, we have a request for a continuance on 2020 CZN 834 and 2020 CVR 834. I'm going to make the motion for the neighborhood association to continue. Can I get a second from Westrick?
Second.
I'll now call the roll. Dillon, no. Westrick.
No.
Selm.
Yes.
Schumacher.
Yes.
Robinson.
No.
Garber.
No.
Bruns.
No.
Blackburn.
Blackburn, no.
The noes have it and passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 6-2. I would invite the neighborhood association to come back on as a remonstrator during the hearing. Are there any other requests for continuances or withdrawals?
I don't believe we have anybody on the line, but there are staff requests.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Linda.
There's no one on the line, but I believe staff has a request.
Thank you, staff.
Thank you, President Dillon, members of the commission. This is Kathleen Blackham. Staff would draw your attention to 2020 MOD 015 located at 2345 Enterprise Park Place. An automatic continuance has been filed by a registered neighborhood organization, continuing this to the January 20th hearing 2021. And that would just require your acknowledgement.
So acknowledged. It's been moved to January 20th, 2021. Does staff have any other continuances? Hearing none. Madam Secretary, will you read the no appeals into the minutes, please?
Certainly, President Dillon. Thank you and commission. Petitions from no appeals. Petitions recommended for approval. 2020 MOD 014, 9135 Harrison Park Court, Lawrence Township, Council District 4. 2020 ZON 074, 5830, 5832, 5836, 5840, and 5842 West Minnesota Street, 1600 and 1616 Lindley Avenue, and 1500 Plainfield Avenue, Wayne Township, Council District 22. 2020 ZON 077, 3802, 3820, and 3822 East 13th Street, Center Township, Council District 12. 2020 REG 074 at 1627, 1717, 1719, and 1741 North Illinois Street, Center Township, Council District 11. And lastly, 2020 REG 075, 1220 Waterway Boulevard, Center Township, Council District 11.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The Secretary has read 5 petitions and no appeals into the record. I will accept a motion from Blackburn to approve.
So moved.
Do we have a second by Commissioner Bruns?
Bruns, second.
Thank you. I now call the roll. Blackburn.
Blackburn, aye.
Bruns.
Bruns, yes.
Garver.
Garver, yes.
Robinson.
Robinson, yes.
Schumacher.
Schumacher, yes.
Selm.
Selm, aye.
Westrick.
Westrick, aye.
Dillon is an aye. The petitions of no appeals pass 8-0. Moving forward, Madam Secretary, will you call our first case?
Yes, thank you again, President Dillon and Commission. The first petition today for public hearing is rezoning petition recommended for approval by the hearing examiner. MDC scheduled it for public hearing per the request of City County Councilor. It's 2020 ZON 057, 8639 and 8415 West Washington Street. Approximate addresses Wayne Township, Council District 22. Petitioner is Gregory A. Dotson, asking for rezoning of 5 acres from the C3 and C4 district to the I1 district.
Thank you. For the record, we are now moving into these public hearings that the city of Indianapolis takes very seriously. We hold the public's testimony in high regard. There are 3 ways for you to communicate your testimony into the record today. First is by emailing DMD public comments at indy.gov. If you would send in your comments, staff will reply back to you immediately. Secondly, on your WebEx function, there's a question and answer section that's on the right side of your computer. If you write in your questions and comments, we will address those at the appropriate time during the hearing. And then third, you may verbally convey your testimony and speak during the electronic meeting. To speak, please wait for the case to be called. And once the petitioner begins their presentation, please indicate you would like to speak by using the question and answer function. Please state your name, address, and the case number that you wish to speak on. At the appropriate time, you will be called upon to provide your testimony. Moving forward to the very first public hearing, 2020 ZON 057. Am I correct on that, Nancy? Thank you.
That's correct, sir.
Is the petitioner ready?
Yes,
May you introduce yourself and be sworn in, sir.
I'm Greg Dotson.
Hello, Greg.
Mr. Dotson, would you give your name and address and I'll swear you in?
Greg Dotson, 63 Gettysburg, Coatesville, Indiana.
Thank you, sir. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury to tell the truth and nothing but the truth? Say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Greg, the rules of engagement are consistent. You have 15 minutes to present your case. We then would go to any remonstrator for 15 minutes. I'll then go to staff for comments. And I always give any city council member their own time. I don't think we have one on in this matter. So Greg, you've got 15 minutes, sir. Go.
We filed this back in July. It's been continued a few times. There was some issues. Well, we had to work out with commitments. Those have been resolved. Staff and I and counselor are in agreement. I'd just like to move it forward.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the petitioner? Linda, are there any remonstrators on the phone?
We do not have any remonstrators, but Councilor Jared Evans said he would like to speak.
On this matter?
Yes, sir.
Great.
Hello, Commissioner. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can. Councilor Evans, welcome. And we always appreciate your support, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, President Dillon and Commission. Just want to speak in support of this. I want to thank Greg. Greg has been good to work with. This was a undeveloped parcel of land that I was uncomfortable with rezoning without some site plan rendering idea of what they wanted to build. He wasn't prepared to go that far, so we added some commitments that made me much more comfortable in being able to support this. So just here to voice my support for this and encourage our commission. Let's make sure that we're always fighting for the best use of our land here in the city of Indianapolis.
Thank you, Councilor, and thank you again for being here today. And by the way, thank you for your support of the commission. It's very much appreciated. Staff, do you have a comment?
Thank you, President Dillon, members of the commission. Staff is recommending approval of this. Again, it's the rezoning from a C3 and C4 to the I1 district. And as you'll note from what you see on the screen, there are two parcels that are involved with this. The comprehensive plan recommends industrial office. And although it may not be exactly consistent with the comprehensive plan, the development standards of the I1 district provides appropriate development parameters that would minimize the impact on the surrounding land uses and would be compatible with the development that exists along that corridor today. And for those reasons, staff is recommending approval of it, subject to a couple of commitments that you will see in the staff report that relates to building elevations submitted for administrator approval. And then a 30-foot easement shall be provided along the southern boundary of 8639 West Washington Street for the future Vandalia Trail. And staff understands, Mr. Dotson, the petitioner is in agreement with that. And in addition to those that Councilor Evans has requested. And with that, staff would be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions for staff and or the petitioner, members of the commission? Hearing none. So Greg, you have 5 minutes for a rebuttal, but it doesn't sound like you need it since we have a love fest going on. Is that correct?
Right.
All right.
Right. Sounds good.
Let's move forward. I'll accept a motion for 2020 ZON 057 to be approved. Can I get a motion from Bruns?
Bruns, so moved.
Second, Garver.
Garver seconds.
Thank you. I'll call the roll. Blackburn,
Blackburn, yes.
Bruns,
Bruns, yes.
Garver,
Garver, yes.
Robinson,
Robinson, yes.
Schumacher,
Schumacher, yes.
Selm,
Selm, yes.
Westrick.
Westrick, yes.
Dillon is a yes. It passes 8-0. Congratulations, Greg. Thank you, Councilor Evans, for your assistance on the matter. Nancy, would you read the second public hearing into the record, please?
Yes, thank you again. Rezoning petition recommended for approval by hearing examiner, PO 5 by the remonstrator, 2020 ZON 070, 1847 South State Avenue and 1713 East Naomi Street. Approximate addresses, Center Township, Council District 21. Gary Bole by David Gilman, requesting rezoning of 0.374 acre from the I3 district to the C4 district.
Thank you. Is the petitioner on the phone, on the Zoom?
Yes, President Dillon, we are.
Who's going to speak today for the petitioner?
David Gilman and attorney Paul Page.
D. Paul Page?
D. Paul Page, yes.
He's a good man. Nancy, would you please swear in these two?
Yes, I'll swear in the petitioners and their supporters. Mr. Gilman, can you state your name and address for us, please?
Yes, my name is David Gilman, representing the petitioner. My office is at 211 South Ritter Avenue, Suite H, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46219.
Paul Page, attorney Paul Page. Address is 333 East Ohio Street, Indianapolis, Indiana.
Thank you both. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury to tell the truth and nothing but the truth? Say, I do, Mr. Gilman.
I do.
Mr. Page?
I do.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Linda, I think we have remonstrators on this. Is that correct?
Correct, sir.
All right, we will come to them secondly. Under the rules of engagement, I'll repeat them again. The petitioner has 15 minutes. We will then go to the remonstrator, who has 15 minutes. We'll then go to staff. At that time, I'll come back to the petitioner for rebuttal, and I'll finish with remonstrator for rebuttal. And during that time, the commission may be asking questions. The petitioner, you're on the shot clock. 15 minutes, go.
Thank you. Again, David Gilman, representing petition 2020 ZON 070. We're asking the MDC today to uphold the hearing examiner's recommendation to approve our zoning to downzone this property from an I3S district to a C4 district. This property is 74 acres. It's a small site. Because we're on appeal from the remonstrators, I want to get right to their concerns and address those at the first part of my presentation. They've addressed 6 items in a written letter to the staff and to this commission about reasons that they feel this petition should be denied. The first one they mention is traffic. In their letter, they say too much traffic at this busy intersection. The proposed use would downzone this property from medium industrial to neighborhood commercial. The proposed development would have 2 access points that would evenly distribute traffic from this intersection. Many of the patrons could walk or bike to the convenience store or shorten their drive for fuel instead of driving down the street to Raymond Street, thus reducing local traffic. The proposal gives the neighborhood more options that live in or near this area. The petitioner has agreed to dedicate right-of-way to the DPW for any road or intersection improvements, should they be needed. Second issue they raise, more pollution for contaminated soils. This is a new gas station and must meet extremely strict IDEM underground container standards. This should not be an issue with new underground storage tanks or development. The new park and school that they mentioned that is fearful of these contaminants has a playground, and they are located south of our site, which sets 4 to 6 feet higher in elevation and thus is separated by a 125-year-old railroad track. It's highly unlikely that groundwater would run uphill, causing any potential problems for this new park development. Third, more trash, prostitutes, drug addicts, and homelessness was their testimony at the hearing examiner are brought to this area as a result of this convenience store. We point out that this is not a land use consideration, and we feel it's a harmful stereotype for new gas stations and convenience stores. Nevertheless, this site would be lidded in the parking area, and security cameras would be provided around the building. The fourth item, unhealthy food options high in salt, fat, sugars, which increase low-income obesity. We didn't really take this as a land use consideration at all, and we're just going to skip over that one. 5, their proposal is just there to take advantage of low-income people. We feel this will be a good service for those who can't afford a car to drive to get milk, bread, as well as other needed household items. 6, there are too many gas stations in the area. Our research shows that there are 2 gas stations approximately 1.6 miles south and east serving the Raymond Street traffic. These are not considered competitive for this site. There is 1 corner neighborhood grocery store and gas station at the northeast corner of State and Pleasant Runway Park, Fountain Square neighborhood. This is more like what we proposed. See the photograph. So the first overhead that you're looking at shows our subject site in blue in the center of what I've outlined as the Fountain Square Alliance neighborhood. I've identified 2 gas stations, one to the immediate north, which we have a photograph of that we would like to share with you. And then the others are outside this neighborhood boundary, except for the very far southeast corner down on Raymond Street, which we mentioned previously. In this entire neighborhood area, which comprises 0.62 square miles, there are no gas stations, there are no convenience stores except for one, and ours is in a needed area along a heavy industrial belt along the railroad tracks, serving thousands of residential properties and many, many businesses with hundreds of employees. We feel that the market shall determine the supply and demand for convenience stores, gas stations in a given area. This should not be an individual decision as a land use factor in zoning. Many intersections and neighborhoods have multiple gas stations. It's a matter of driving direction, choices, and convenience. Leaving the site undeveloped, could you, Marlene, could you go to the next slide, please? This is our existing property as it sits today, less all the graffiti that's been tagged on the sides. Leaving this site undeveloped and vacant would be much more harmful on the neighborhood than our proposed use. The applicant would invest approximately $800,000 to this corner and potentially attract more investment to the area. It follows the old weed and seed principle. Leaving this lot vacant would only deter from the neighborhood and does not promote revitalization. The park investment just north of our or south of our site, according to the remonstrator's letter, $1 million investment. What an opportunity for this neighborhood to have another $800,000 investment within walking distance. There are no reasonable uses for this site as presently zoned. And the likelihood of other C3 or C4 uses, such as special uses, retail or restaurant, is not likely on this site due to the I-3S setback restrictions and parking requirements for those uses. Not to mention, there are already 2 nearby restaurants that appear to be closed in the immediate area. One at the northeast corner of State and Minnesota, and another at the northeast corner of State and LeGrand. The hearing examiner did in fact hear and or read all the remonstrators' concern and still recommended approval based on the existing zoning would not permit the site for development. The proposed use is a compatible use versus the surrounding industrial zoning to the east, south, and west, and commercial zoning to the north. In addition, she recommended approval with the staff's recommendation for approval to dedicate the right-of-way at Naomi and State Street. It also was acknowledged that I had mentioned that many of the objections raised by the remonstrants was not necessarily land use consideration, such as convenience stores attract nuisances. Attorney Paul Page met with, he's the attorney for the buyer, met with Councilor Mascari, and they agreed to several commitments to help alleviate the neighborhood concerns and continue to believe that substantial investment in this property would greatly benefit the community and the area residents. And I've attached a copy of those proposed commitments on the MDC exhibit form signed by the owner. Mr. Page is here today. He's available to answer questions regarding that meeting with Councilor Mascari. We're asking you today to base your decision on land use considerations and not emotions, and support the staff's recommendation, the hearing examiner's recommendation to approve this petition. With that, Mr. Page and I will be open for questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that conclude the petitioner's testimony?
Yes.
Any questions from members of the commission to the petitioner? Hearing none, let's go to the remonstrators. Linda?
Thank you. We have 3 remonstrators. I'm going to start with Susan Goff. Susan, you're on my list twice. So I'm going to unmute one of them. Let's see if you're there.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Who's this, Linda?
Susan Goff.
Susan. And then who are the other 2, please?
Jessica Darling and John Phoenix.
Can you put them all on so we can swear them in, please?
I believe Jessica had to step away.
Thank you. Is Felix available?
I am not able to unmute Mr. Phoenix.
Okay. Madam Secretary, would you swear Susan in, please?
Yes, Ms. Gall, would you state your name and address, and then I will swear you in.
I'm Susan Gaw, 17, that's G-A-W, 1746 Asbury Street, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46203.
Jessica Darling is here now.
Ms. Darling, would you state your name and address?
Jessica Darling, 1433 South State Avenue, 46203.
And Linda, do we have Mr. Phoenix?
He is not, I'm not able to unmute him, but I have 3 new call-in users. Let me check to see if one of them is him.
Okay.
Call-in users, I'm going to unmute you. You'll hear a beep. Please give us your name and which case you're here for. He is not any one of those callers.
President Dillon, I can go ahead and swear these 2 in and then have Mr. Phoenix join us later. Is that correct?
Yes, Nancy, keep it moving.
Yes. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury to tell the truth and nothing but the truth? Say, I do. Ms. Gall?
I do. I do.
And Ms. Darling?
I do.
Thank you.
Ladies, rules of engagement, I think you might have heard them earlier. We gave the petitioner 15 minutes. We will now give you 15 minutes, and then we may have some questions for you. You're on the shot clock, go.
Thank you, President Dillon and members, for hearing our appeal to the previous zoning application that was granted in November. Before I begin, I want to state that our neighborhood organization is not against development. However, we are in favor of intelligent city planning that is driven by neighborhood needs and supported by our community. This appeal will include the following. Could we have our slides, please? Thank you. It will include a current condition of the property, graffiti, trash, criminal activity, community and neighbor survey results, letters of support from neighborhood partners, environmental concerns, scientific research on convenience stores in low-income neighborhoods. The first slide, please. Next slide. This is what the building looks like now. Mr. Gilman presented a nice aerial view on what it looked like before this graffiti was added at 1847 State. This is what it is at street level and what we see every day. This has been here for several years. Failure to upkeep the property shows a complete and utter lack of respect for our neighborhood. Perhaps some would call this artwork, but the person who painted these was no Basquiat. The owner has made no attempt to clean or paint over what could generally be called tagging, but is more like vandalism. Additionally, the property at 1847 has had several code violations with Marion County Health Department related to illegal dumping and trash dating back as far as 2017. Little has been done to secure the property, and it still continues to be a collecting point for trash and littering. Next slide, please. In regards to criminal activity, even with no business currently open at 1847 State, there have been 5 police runs to that location over the past year. At 1634 South State, 2 blocks north, is the Family Express. Crime Tracker reports 26 runs from 9/8/20 to 12/8/20. Offense against person, property offense, drug offense, offense against society, other offense, and other incidents. I believe we all know that not all crimes are reported. I would also like to mention that a man was stabbed to death at this location back in the summer, and the police have only last week arrested a suspect in that murder. Also, an armed robbery happened just last Sunday, 1.5 miles away. Additional police runs include the many traffic accidents at the intersection due to poor visibility. We do not need more cars at an already dangerous intersection. Next slide, please. We conducted neighborhood polls. We did our due diligence and asked our community if they were in support or against the proposed development. Our neighbors have overwhelmingly spoken out against a gas station convenience store at this location. We already have 11 gas stations and 5 convenience stores within 1 mile of this location. They may not all be located in our neighborhood, but they are within 1 mile of this address. I'd like to remind MDC that portions of our neighborhood were previously used as industrial landfills. A recent renovation to Sandorf Park, which is only a few dozen feet away from this location, required significant environmental remediation, with IDEM requiring increased testing, removal of feet and feet of contaminated soil that needed to be replaced, and a 2-foot cap over significant portions just on the other side of the railroad tracks. Has there been any testing of soil at this location? With the addition of gas tankers to the ground, what type of groundwater runoff is being considered? We're not concerned about it going to Sandorf Park. What about the homes right around that area? Where will the runoff go? Contaminated sites can easily have materials be blown or washed onto adjacent sites, which in this case is residential homes. The next slide, please. Please go on. Next, please. Here's letters of support that we have from our neighborhood partners. I'll read them if you like. They are there on the slides. The first one from Frank Mascari. I'm writing to rescind the previous letter sent. After hearing from both sides, I must support the neighborhood of Fountain Square Alliance and their efforts to remonstrate on 2020 ZON 070 against the convenience store at 1847 South State. Looking at the project overall, it looks great, but the neighbors say they do not want this. As a representative for the residents in that area, I have heard their needs and I cannot be in support of this. I therefore recommend that you strike the approval of this petition and this request. Thank you for your consideration of this request. Frank Muscari, City County Councilor, District 21.
We have the other two letters in the minutes. Thank you. You can keep moving.
We have two other letters. You can see them. They are from Southeast Neighborhood Development. Kelly Murgo, President, also in support of our neighborhood and not approving this type of development. The other is from Southeast Community Services, Terry Garcia, Executive Director. She also states this is a bad idea in her letter. So the letters are there. They are submitted.
Thank you.
There are also, we submit 2 research reports. We've read the entire reports. You folks don't have time to read them, but we concluded them. We've condensed them for you. Taken from an article published in the Journal of International Environmental Research and Public Health titled, "Food Swamps Predict Obesity Rates Better Than Food Deserts in the United States." We began with the traditional retail food environment index, which is calculated as the ratio of fast food retailers and convenience stores to grocery stores and supermarkets. The RFEI measure considers fast food restaurants, full-service restaurants, and convenience stores as unhealthy food outlets, and supermarkets, grocery stores, and farmers markets as healthy food outlets. The key hypotheses were that 1, food swamps are a distinct and separate phenomenon to food deserts, and 2, food swamps have a stronger positive effect on obesity rates than food deserts. Even after controlling for physical activity and socio-demographic information, our results suggest that the presence of a food swamp is a stronger predictor of obesity rates than the absence of full-service grocery stores. Land use and zoning policies are usually implemented at the county and city level. Therefore, our county level assessment of this topic can potentially inform an identification strategy for municipalities that would most benefit from revising zoning policies related to the local food environment. Based on these findings, local government policies such as zoning laws simultaneously restricting access to unhealthy food outlets and incentivizing healthy food retailers to locate in underserved neighborhoods warrants consideration as strategies to increase health equity. The other one, the summary of frequent usage of convenience stores is associated with low diet quality. Previous studies reveal that the density of convenience stores in neighborhoods was associated with chronic diseases such as hypertension and diabetes type 2. Currently, lifestyles have become diverse and more irregular, and food consumption patterns are changing because of this lifestyle change. One of the factors in this change is neighborhood food environment. Having a variety of neighborhood food outlets was associated with beneficial dietary patterns, and that the increased number of convenience stores and fast food outlets in the neighborhood was associated with increased risk of type 2 diabetes. Furthermore, it has been reported that the high density of convenience store in the neighborhood was associated with obesity. In this way, neighborhood food environment is associated with chronic diseases. In conclusion, the frequent usage of convenience stores is associated with low diet quality and with the prevalence of obesity and hypertension. We hope you will consider all of these when you make your decision. Everything that you folks decide impacts us. We have to live with the decisions that you make. And I'm not being emotional. I'm just speaking for my neighborhood. Our neighbors have suggested a bakery, another restaurant, and we do have a restaurant that's open and doing well on Minnesota Street, by the way. It's a taco shop, and they're doing very well. I've spoken with the owner many times. So we suggest a bakery or a restaurant or something that would benefit our neighbors, not make their lives worse. I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time and your presentation. Any questions from the demonstrators, from members of the commission? Let's move forward to staff. Who's handling this?
We still have 2 remonstrators.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Jessica Darling, you're next.
Who is it?
Jessica Darling.
Jessica?
Yes, good afternoon, sir. My name is Jessica Darling, and I am the Vice President for Fountain Square Alliance, and I want to thank Susan Garr, President, for her presentation today. Just want to reiterate our support of development in our neighborhood. We are a fast-changing neighborhood that has had significant growth in home sales over the past 6 months. In fact, in the last 3 months, we've had approximately 42 homes change over. So we know that growth and change and development is coming to our area of Fountain Square Alliance. And again, we are pro-development if it meets the community needs. And I think overwhelmingly, you'll see in our survey that a convenience store and gas station is not what our community wants. In the survey that we submitted to the minutes, you will see many, many additional options. And if the investor has $800,000 proposed on the line, we'd love for them to come to the table, meet with us, the Fountain Square Alliance, to actually talk about what options we could have there. We understand that development will come, but we do ask that you consider what the neighborhood actually wants and not developers who do not live here nor actually invest in the current properties they have. Thank you.
Linda, there's another remonstrator.
Yes, John Phoenix has now joined us by telephone. He will need to be sworn in.
Thank you. Nancy, can you swear in Mr. Phoenix?
Yes, Mr. Phoenix, please state your name and address and I'll swear you in.
John Phoenix. My house is 1702 Naomi Street.
Mr. Phoenix, do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury to tell the truth and nothing but the truth? Say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
John, go ahead. You're down to 3 minutes, sir.
Okay. My concern about this project is the parking on Naomi Street. I have a house on the corner of State and Naomi, and if they take the parking from in front of my house, people that live there won't have a place to park. That's my concern about the whole project. And that's all I really have to say on the matter.
Thank you, John, for your testimony. Are there any other demonstrators? Linda?
No, sir.
Thank you. Who's handling this matter? Are there any questions for any demonstrators from staff? I'm sorry, from the commission? Hearing none. Staff?
Thank you, President Dillon, members of the commission. Staff is recommending approval of this request, which is the rezoning to the C4 district from an industrial district. The comprehensive plan recommends light industrial for this site. However, this proposal is not consistent with that recommendation, but because it would have minimal impact on those surrounding land uses, including the industrial that is to the west, to the south, and the east of the site, and then commercial or to the north, staff believes that the C4 would be appropriate. Again, the development of this site, as it's zoned now, would, with a light industrial use, would be difficult because of the size. It's approximately 1/3 of an acre and the required development standards. So it could not really be appropriately developed with an industrial use, and staff again believes that the proposed use would be appropriate. And just a note that the hearing examiner agreed with that and made a recommendation of approval. And with that, staff would be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Kathleen. Questions from the commission for staff? Hearing none. The petitioner now has 5 minutes for rebuttal, if necessary.
Thank you, President Dillon. Marlena, would you put up the slide showing our existing building again? While she's doing that, I'm going to go through my rebuttal. And what I want to do is I'm going to present the commission with some facts and then just go into answering questions. This slide you see, this is just about a half-mile north. Very similar situation back in 2007. This corner was an abandoned site, was renovated for this gasoline station, very neighborhood-oriented. It's been a huge success for this Fountain Square neighborhood. Many areas, many homes surrounding this corner after that for the past 10 years have invested and redeveloped, so it's been a very positive thing. We feel the same outcome is projected for our corner at 1713 Naomi. But in my rebuttal, the facts. The site can't be developed as zoned due to its small footprint, industrial zoning, limited parking opportunities, and excessive setbacks. Fact, the petition would downzone the property to better transition to a residential neighborhood, allow for the use that is not opposed by 61 residents, agencies, businesses within the rules of procedure that were required within the written notification area. Those people that were sent notice include IMPD, Parks Department, area neighborhood, and business associations, and many other stakeholders in our city. Only John Phoenix had called me before the hearing examiner's decision to make a comment about the parking. We would told him we would work with it, but we had no intention of removing that public parking street space. Fact, the property's been vacant and dark for the past 3 or more years. It needs this type of investment. That's why we're buying it. We don't like the tag graffiti. We are trying to get a buyer in there to invest so that there is no police runs, no trash, and the site becomes a viable part of the community and not a deterrent. The proposed use would be well lit, added security cameras. Every square foot of this property would be actively used by customers. The site and the building would be redeveloped to meet today's standards. Fact, the staff agrees this is an acceptable use for the property and has asked for a dedication of additional right-of-way on both State and Naomi Street for future intersection improvements or any road improvements that may be needed. We've agreed to this commitment. Fact, the hearing examiner was able to base her decision to recommend approval strictly on land use consideration and the staff's recommendation. Now, the counselor did initially write a letter to oppose without the benefit of attending the hearing examiner's hearing or reaching out to the petitioner. Then reversed that recommendation to fully support the petition, subject to 4 commitments after meeting with attorney Paul Page on December 10th. Unfortunately, he felt he had to reverse the support yesterday afternoon and again opposed, but again, he did acknowledge overall this is a great project. As you all know, we're not going to be able to satisfy every property owner with new development or redevelopment, and the handful of neighbors who signed a petition, all but one, live outside the notification area, and we feel we've clearly demonstrated that the remonstrance does not represent the Fountain Square Alliance neighborhood in its totality. We've only received 1 call up to this very day about this petition, and it was across from Naomi again from Mr. Phoenix. The remonstrators on their very own online poll show 9 who either support or may support it, and this is what they base their support on. New jobs, better choice to shop. We want a gas station on this corner. It's a great place to go quickly that's near my work. All this being considered, we ask that the MDC support your staff, the hearing examiner's recommendation to approve. In addition, in good faith with our discussions with Mr. Page and Councilor Mascari, we will still honor our 4 self-imposed commitments that we offer to have a positive impact on this neighborhood, and we would add to that the dedication of right-of-way that's been requested by staff. With that, I would open myself and Mr. Page up for questions. Thank you.
Questions for the petitioner?
This is Commissioner Bruns. Quick question.
Yes.
Just talk a little bit about the diversification of product within the convenience store. I know, convenience stores have made a great stride to address healthy food options for, these particular reasons to be available to neighborhoods where grocery stores aren't as prevalent. Can you talk a little bit about the product offering? If I know that's not really what we're here to approve, but it's certainly a major concern of the neighborhood. I just wanted to kind of get your feedback on that.
Absolutely. The The existing building would be renovated to be a gas station, convenience store, and I think they're going to have a hot food preparation available in the store as well. There's only 2 gas pumps that would service 4 cars to the east of the property, and all of the items will be brought in, fresh fruits. It's not all going to be your typical fast food or anything like that. All these stores and all these convenience stores that you see that are being built today all have very healthy food choices. And I think that's the success that we're seeing, and this will be no different.
Is there an operator selected for is there a particular brand like a Circle K or 7-Eleven that will operate the property?
We don't have that information at this point, no.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Final questions for the petitioner? I have 5 minutes for the remonstrator
Yes, sir.
to rebut any issues.
Yes, sir. I believe Mr. Gilman misspoke. He may have looked at the online responses that we received, and some of those people did not live near this area. However, we hand carried a petition to our neighbors who live closest, neighbors on Asbury, Dawson, Naomi, and I believe Iowa Street as well, or Lawton. And all of those people were against. There was 1 or 2 that said they would be for a convenience store. All the rest, out of 33 names, they were opposed to this kind of development in their area. And they live the closest to it. They're the ones that have to live with this. There are children there. We don't need or want more drain on our police resources. They are stacked up now with homelessness and prostitution and drug overdoses in our area. These are facts. We're not just making this up, we pull those reports from the police. However, they are not allowed to remonstrate for or against these kind of things. So it's a false horse to say that the police did not object and businesses did not object. Most people don't even care what happens in their neighborhood. You folks have got to admit, apathy is rife within our world. And with the coronavirus making it even harder for people to get out and talk to each other, it's hard to even reach our neighbors. We did what we could. We went out and publicly presented ourselves, put ourselves in danger to find out what our neighbors want. I would like to propose that developers should actually try to meet with neighborhood groups like us. I'm the president of our neighborhood organization and have been for several years. Why don't they come to us before they submit an application for a zoning change? We might be happy to work with them, but they don't do that. They come in and ask you and think they're just going to roll over us and that we have no standing, but we do. We have standing with the city, and we work hard every day to make our neighborhood better. We would like to live in a nice residential neighborhood that maybe some of you are fortunate enough to live in, but we don't. We live in a downtrodden, overlooked, formerly industrial neighborhood. We just now got a $4 million renovation to Sandorf Park. Why can't we have something like some affordable housing on that corner? Something decent for our neighbors. I don't know what else to say to you folks to make you understand how important this is to us. But if you have questions for me, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you, Susan. Any questions from the remonstrator? Hearing none. Staff, final comments, Kathleen?
Mr. President, there was Jessica Darling was still from the remonstrators to speak.
I'm sorry?
Jessica Darling was one of the remonstrators still left to speak, and there's still time on their clock.
Good afternoon. Yes, I would just like to address the petitioner's commitments that were sent to us by Mr. Mascari, our counselor. The 5 commitments that were given to us were that they would provide full shield security lighting, install and maintain in good working condition security cameras, shall enforce no loitering with IMPD support and a close working relationship, that the cash register area shall be clearly visible from the street with windows as required by the zoning ordinance. These commitments, as I read them, are nothing more than standard operating issues as well as meeting various code and zoning ordinances. There's nothing about them that makes me feel like they are investing something good into our neighborhood, but rather doing the bare minimum to invest in our space and just make money off of an investment that they don't have to care about. I know you want to keep emotions out of this, and I will try my best on that, but I echo Susan when I say, we really don't want this. We will be happily come to the table with the investor and talk about other options, which I know there are other options in this zoning area, but a gas station and convenience store is not wanted by our neighborhood. Thank you.
Linda, I think that concludes remonstrators, does it not? Linda?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. Moving forward, Kathleen, final comments?
Thank you, President Dillon. Staff has no further comments.
And you're for the project?
That is correct. Staff is recommending approval subject to the commitment that Mr. Gilman has indicated that they agree with.
Thank you. Members of the commission, subject to the commitments the petitioner has agreed with, I'm bringing 2020 ZON 070 to the floor. Can I get a motion to approve by Bruns?
Bruns, so moved.
Garver, can I get a second?
Garver, second.
I'll now call the roll. A yes passes this hearing. Zoning hearing, a no defeats it. Blackburn.
Blackburn, no.
Bruns.
Bruns, no.
Garver.
Garver, no.
Robinson.
Robinson, no.
Schumacher.
Schumacher, no.
Selm.
Selm, no.
Westrick.
Westrick, no.
Dillon is a yes. The zoning petition is defeated 7-1. Congratulations to the neighborhood. Nancy, we're getting into a time crunch. I need to have the Kentucky Avenue, Canby Road, 2020 CZN 834 and CVR 834 heard first, and then we'll hear Kerwood Drive last. So if you would read the Kentucky Avenue, Canby Road into the minutes, and we'll get started on that, please.
Yes, thank you, President Dillon. Companion petitions transferred by the hearing examiner for initial hearing 2020 CZN 834 and 2020 CVR 834, 6400, 6449, 6455, 6500, 6559, 6565, 600, and 6833 Kentucky Avenue, 6700, 7924, 7944, 8002, 8032, and 8210 Canby Road. Approximate addresses: Decatur Township, Council District 20, Hillwood Enterprises LP by J. Murray Clark, requesting rezoning of 131.87 acres from the DA, D3, C1, C3, and C5 districts to the I2 district. Also requesting a variance of use of the consolidated zoning and subdivision ordinance to provide for C3 uses: vocational, technical, or industrial school or training facility, hotel, motel, or hostel, and heavy general retail, all not permitted, or not permitted. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the petitioner ready to present their case?
Yes, Mr. President.
Can you announce everyone who will be testifying for the petitioner, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. For the record, Murray Clark, officers at 300 North Meridian Street. I represent the petitioner, Hillwood Enterprises. Mr. President, for presentation purposes this afternoon, I will begin. I'll then hand it over to Don Schoenheider of Hillwood, the petitioner. Then one of the owners of the property, Joe Yeager, will testify, and then back to me to conclude our presentation. Having said that, I'd like to save a couple minutes then for Pat Andrews to present her support statement and the support of the Decatur Township Civic Council.
I need all the petitioners, Mr. Clark, to introduce themselves and their addresses so they may be sworn in, please.
Don?
Yeah, Mr. President, I'm Don Schoenheider with Hillwood, 9725 West Higgins Road, Suite 425, Rosemont, 60018.
Next.
Joe? Joe Yeager?
Mr. Yeager,
It appears
Mr. Clark, please keep moving.
Pat Andrews.
Good afternoon. Oh. Am I unmuted?
Yes, Pat, go ahead.
Thank you. Pat Andrews, 7631 Reynolds Road in Canby.
Thank you, Pat. Next.
Still waiting for Joe Yeager, I think, Mr. President.
I'm sorry?
Joe Yeager, I don't believe he's given his address.
He has been unmuted, but it appears his mic isn't working.
Thank you. Nancy, will you swear in the petitioners, please?
Yes. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, Mr. Clark?
I do, Nancy.
Mr. Schoenheider?
I do.
Ms. Sanders?
Yes,
Thank
I do.
Mr. Clark, you have 15 minutes. Any remonstrators will have 15 minutes. I understand there's a city councilman who wishes to speak. We'll give him his own time. Staff will then comment. We'll go back for rebuttal. 5 minutes each. You're on the shot clock. Mr. Clark, go.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, Murray Clark for the petitioner, offices at 300 North Meridian Street. Hillwood Enterprise, petitioner, our rezoning petition for the property located generally at the northeast quadrant of Canby Road and Kentucky Avenue. I do hope Joe Yeager fixes his mic problems because I sure would like him to be able to speak as well. Next slide, please. I think Marlene, if you are doing it, that'd be great. This property is located near the 1,500-acre Ameriplex Industrial Business Park, which itself is near the Indianapolis International Airport, and of course, I-465 and I-70. The yellow star on this slide south of the rezoning property identifies Decatur Township property where industrial zoning has already been approved. Next slide, please. The petitioner proposes an office flex business park with a campus-like feel and a non-linear tree-lined streets and sidewalks. We expect the buildings will have multiple occupants and likely tenants will include light manufacturing, assembly, research and development, biotech, life sciences, food and beverage, and light distribution. Next slide, please. The staff report correctly reflects that in 2019, we filed and later withdrew a rezoning request in this area. You will see the original 2019 site plan on the left-hand side of this slide. In the new current site plan, we've reduced the overall project by 42 acres. The project now consists of 6 Class A office flex buildings. They'll be single loaded, and the service yard side of the buildings will face the interior of the business park. The site layout incorporates thoughtful pedestrian connectivity and significant open space. A combination of berms and landscaping will provide a buffer to adjacent rights of way and dwelling uses. Importantly, there will be no direct vehicular access to the business park from Canby Road. Finally, as Nancy read and mentioned, we have also asked for a variance to allow the potential for potential retail commercial at the southwest end of the site. You see it there in yellow on the current site plan. Next slide, please. As you can see in this slide, due to lack of consensus regarding land use in this area of Decatur Township, the city hired the Urban Land Institute of Indiana, or ULI, for expert assistance. ULI is a well-respected independent organization whose members help solve challenging community land use issues. That's exactly what happened here. Next slide, please. In this slide, please take a look at ULI's conceptual land use plan depicted on this slide, which clearly illustrates ULI's support of office flex or light industrial at this location. Note the ULI pink area on its conceptual plan. We took the liberty of overlaying a green outline of our downsized site. As you can see, by reducing the project by 42 acres, we recognize and adhere to the professional recommendations of this independent planning organization commissioned by the city. Next slide, please. Mr. President, can we now hear from Mr. Schoenheider?
Yes, go ahead, Don.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the commission, city staff. I'm Don Schoenheider with Hillwood. Hillwood is a private investment development firm owned and started by the Perot family, Ross Perot Sr., who unfortunately we lost last year, and Ross Perot Jr., who remains our chairman. We've been around over 30 years. We're active in 24 states, 5 countries, and we have developed products such as we're proposing in Decatur Township to the tune of over 200 million square feet of this product around the country and around the world. We've developed just over 72 million feet of it in the last 5 years. So our expertise and history of developing this kind of project is very well known. Next slide, please. May I have the next slide, please? Thank you. This project, as Mr. Clark mentioned, has developed. I'm sorry. I apologize, Marlene. Would you go back? I was not keeping track with mine. Our industry and tenant contacts are worldwide. We are active and have tenants in the electronic and tech industry. We've been very active in food category, healthcare, materials, construction, automotive, and equipment. As Mr. Clark mentioned, all of those are categories of tenants we believe will be logical tenants that will contribute greatly to this location, to these buildings, and to Decatur Township. Now let's do next slide, please. As Mr. Clark mentioned, this project started in its conceptual stage nearly 18 months ago. We began the process of interacting with the Decatur Township Civic Council and community groups back in December of 2019. And at that point in time, this project was very different. As Mr. Clark has mentioned, we've made dramatic changes to this project, and you can see some of the things such as removing the 41 acres of land to the east. We've moved all traffic only into and off of the project, off of Kentucky Avenue. We've shrunk the buildings down. We've made them smaller. We've made them lower in height. We've also made them dramatically different when it comes to the building elevation. We'll see that in just a moment. We've also gone along. The city's comprehensive plan reflects the possibility of having retail, community retail in this area, and we've been willing to dedicate up to 5 acres for that particular use to both serve our business park as well as to serve the community. So we think to a great extent, our project has gotten much better. It's dramatically more viable and actually much more compatible with the community. Next slide, please. You also see that these buildings, which are really office flex buildings, are designed to minimize the long walls that they can visually present. We've agreed as part of our commitments to have architectural impacts and changes in the elevations no more than every 150 feet. You'll see as an example here, elevations for glass on the end, entrances, entrance doors, architectural designs and horseshoes. And so you're aware and the commission's aware, Mr. President, a lot of these changes that have happened, including additional landscaping, additional berming from Canby to shield and protect residents south of Canby and east of the project, have all happened in discussions with Decatur Township Civic Council with the involvement of Councilor Bain over the last, let's call it 3 to 4 weeks. We've met multiple times with the Civic Council, with residents. Councilor Bain's been dramatically involved and has had a tremendous impact on this project. So we're very proud of where it's gone and very proud of where it's headed. Next slide, please. And finally, we think this project will have tremendous impact on the community. We're anticipating 500 to 700 new jobs. We're committing to investing nearly $100 million in this project and a tax revenue stream that could generate at least $12 million in new property taxes. And the project will take approximately 5 to 7 years to build out. Next slide, please. And finally, because we're bringing the traffic out onto Kentucky through a single point, which we believe will be signalized, we've done analysis of traffic both afternoon and morning. The impact is very minimal. We believe once the parkway extension is improved, it will be even better. And again, no entrance, no exit onto Canby Road whatsoever. So it's a self-contained project with traffic exiting and entering the project on Kentucky only. That concludes my presentation. If Mr. Yeager wants to get started, that would be great. Thank you, sir.
Yes, can you hear me now?
We can. Joe, you need to introduce yourself, your address, and be sworn in by Nancy, please.
Okay. I'm Joe Yeager. My address is 13499 Marjack Way, Fishers, 46055.
Mr. Yeager, do you swear from the pennies of perjury to tell the truth, nothing but the truth? Say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Joe.
Okay. Thank you, President. Would you go to slide 13, please? Next slide. Our family owns about 60 acres of the land in the Hillwood development. 15 years ago, we listed it for sale with REI for retail use. This is REI's original for sale sign still standing on our land today. For years, they actively marketed our property. In the past 15 years, no one has shown any interest in, let alone offered to buy this property for retail purposes. Hillwood now proposes an upgraded office flex development for this site. Please go to slide 14, please. Our family participated in the 2020 comprehensive land use planning process. We went before the commission in the plan presentation. We supported the city planner's original recommendation for this property, shown on the slide you're looking at now in purple, which would allow for Hillwood's type of use. Their project is outlined in green. We were told to come back for a zoning change when we had a buyer for the property, and that is why we are here today. Would you please go to slide 15? Take a look at this slide. On the left is the slide you just saw showing DMD's original 2020 comp plan recommendation. On the right is ULI's recommendation for office flex light industrial use. Hillwood's project is outlined in green on both maps. The fit for this project is absolutely remarkable. In addition to the original city planners and ULI's recommendations, there are several additional reasons why these petitions should be approved. First, the MDC's own staff report is in support of these petitions. Secondly, 18 days ago, the Decatur Township Land Use Committee voted to support this project. Thirdly, 16 days ago, the Decatur Township Civic Council overwhelmingly voted to support it. And in addition to that, the MDC has received dozens of emails from residents of the township and county supporting this project. You've also heard about the many benefits this project will provide for the community. They include additional tax revenue, higher paying job opportunities, a high quality development, and a much needed benefit for the school system. This could very well prove to be the highest quality development in Decatur Township, aside from maybe the airport terminal itself. Based on all the information presented today, we ask that you approve these petitions. Thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Joe. Is Pat Andrews ready?
I am.
Pat, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Pat Andrews. I live at 7631 Reynolds Road in Canby. I'm representing the Decatur Township Civic Council. We met on November 30th and voted to support the current rezoning. We've had countless meetings since the last continuance request, and a lot of effort has gone into trying to make something workable. From our point of view as a neighborhood association, we strove to balance gaining good jobs with protecting the investment of nearby neighbors. One thing that has just fallen through the cracks here, but is critical, is that there is a commitment that the tenants will only be from industries that are targeted industries by the state and city of Indianapolis, such as biotech, infotech, racing, always racing. But there's like 7 categories of targeted economic development industries. These would be the tenants that they could bring in, and we feel that they would bring in a full spectrum of job opportunities for folks in Decatur. That is a major plus, and that's what kept us striving to get something to work. There are 337 families that live south of Kentucky Avenue and within a half a mile of this project, with an aggregate investment in their homes of $60 million. There's another 131 houses that are platted and being built and will bring that investment to well over $85 million. We want to protect that investment and the quality of life of the folks who live there. The well-controlled statistical analyses show that by 8 years after an industrial park begins to build, resale values of homes within half a mile are 20% lower than comparable homes farther away, but still in the same zip code. This is a real risk for our families, and this was a source of great effort on our part to balance the development that's being proposed here and safeguard the investment and quality of life of the neighbors who we hope will remain. We are relying on the commitments to keep the stability of the surrounding area. On a positive note in our agreement is the jobs classifications that this development will produce. The building elevations are much improved over what was initially suggested. It reduces the number of loading docks and configures the site so that loading docks are internal to the development. And some of the berming is good and others is just fair. But overall, we're on to a good start. Our discussions with the Hillwood folks will continue as we move on to tax incentives. All in all, this has been been a difficult, long road, but we feel that we've managed to balance the generation of good jobs for our community and still protect our neighborhoods. With that, we would ask that you approve this petition. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. That is the end of the petitioner's time. Any questions for the petitioner from the commission? Seeing, let's go to any remonstrators. Linda.
Yes, we have 3 remonstrators. We're going to start with Michael Stoya.
Great. Michael, can you introduce yourself and your address and be sworn in, please?
Yes, I will, Mr. President, but the first remonstrator will be Dennis Weaver. My address, Michael Stoya, 7617 Trotter Road, Canby.
Thank you. Dennis Weaver, please introduce yourself and your address.
Dennis Weaver, 7717 Canby Road in Canby.
And who's the third?
The last is Tim and Janice McWhirter.
Can they introduce themselves, please, and their address? Tim and Janice?
Hi, this is Jan McWhirter. We're at 8135 Canby Road, and Tim McWhirter is also online.
Thank you. Nancy, can you swear him in?
Yes, thank you. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth under the penalties of perjury? Say, I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. President, this is Michael Story. Can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure, Michael.
I wasn't aware that the McWhirters were going to remonstrate against it. That was not my understanding, but if they are, I want to make sure that I afford them an opportunity to speak. Can we ask them how long they think they will need?
Actually, Mike, we are not here to remonstrate. I wasn't sure why we were called, but we're not.
Okay.
Michael, you've got 15 minutes. You're on the shot clock. Go.
Dennis, go ahead. Dennis Weaver, please go.
You got it. You got it. Well, good afternoon. Thank you for taking some time to hear us out. My name is Dennis Weaver, as we spoke before. I have lived in Decatur Township my entire life. I live just south and east of the proposed development. I'm a commissioned officer in the National Guard and a father of two 20-year-old boys. I'm a little nervous about retention ponds across the street, but that's just something that we apparently are going to have to deal with. The impact of bringing warehouse type buildings to residential neighborhoods has an average depreciation cost of 20%. Speaking professionally, as I'm a realtor, I can attest. I'm asking for a continuance of cause due to the loose verbiage in the staff notes and the rapid change of heart that the Civic Council has chosen. As late as 11/14, we were asked to sign letters of opposition. I want to be clear that I and the Trotter Road Neighborhood Association oppose the use of this land. However, since it appears inevitable that it will eventually be approved, we would like stronger commitments from the developer. After speaking with the Marion County Health Department plan reviewer and septic inspector, it is clear that without action, the residents of Canby who are not in the subdivision will end up on an island of houses without septic and stormwater systems. The staff report commitments are much too loose to be considered an actual commitment. On page 82 of the staff report, section 6, item C outlines future sewer connections, which states, future sewer connection prior to the grant of an improvement location permit or structural permit for building 5, the owner shall engage and collaborate with residential neighbors on the south side of Canby Road opposite the property to ascertain interest in extending a sanitary sewer line to the south of Canby Road and identify potential means of accomplishing said extension that would be available to the residential homeowners for connection. This is the most important part, at their own cost. Notwithstanding the foregoing, nothing in this commitment requires the owner to extend the sewer line outside the property, but rather a commitment to identify possible ways in which the extension of sanitary sewer line to homeowners south of Canby Road can be accomplished. After multiple conversations with citizens who would service the sewers in this given area, that's not going to, they've never wanted to bring it down our direction. It's always 5 more years, 5 more years, 5 more years. I believe that they have a pretty good avenue to be able to bring it in. Now, this does not accommodate houses on the north side of the street, especially the 3 that are between Canby Woods, which is the area that is northeast of the development and the proposed buildings. We also need storm drains. With a project this size and the revenue the developer will bring, they can push these out to the residents of Canby. I would propose that they would also be made to pay for these things. It is rumored that one homeowner on a 3-acre parcel inside of their development is getting up to 3 times the property value of what they should actually get. They will eventually ask for a tax abatement. Please note that the township is in the midst of a tax referendum. I would also propose 15 acres of land that would be set aside for a future community use, park, water park, recreational facility, something that actually benefits the community. In the initial discussion, there was talks of having community areas set aside, but the verbiage on the staff notes state that the community space would be for the employees to enjoy. but it does not mention anything about the community. The developer went from almost 15 acres of retail space to only 4, which runs adjacent to the wetlands in the area, which is the area that is on the northwest side of the proposal. And it is believed to have a negative impact on the development of such. Also, they went from asking for 5 buildings to 6 buildings in the same time frame that they cut from 15 down to 4. That is the end of my portion of the presentation. I would just ask that that be taken into consideration for the continuance.
Thank you. Let me address the continuance right now, Dennis. We're asked for continuance and voted it no. You don't get a second bite at the apple. Michael, go ahead.
Mr. President, I would like to be granted presenter rights for my Google display. Could we stop the clock while we try to get that available to me?
We don't allow members of the public to be able. You should submit your presentation to staff prior to this meeting. So,
I was given the impression. I thought that is my display available for you to reference?
No.
Michael, please proceed.
Okay. That's going to make this really difficult.
You're on the clock, Michael.
Okay, it's going to make this really difficult. Can we pull up page, well, if failing that, can we pull up page 98 of the staff report?
Nancy, start the clock, please.
This was the original proposal by the Hillwood Group. To our knowledge, up until we were notified on November the 27th, this was what was being proposed until the dramatic change in the proposal at that date. We've only had 2 weeks to try to come to terms and comprehend and do discovery on what has now been proposed. This is from your December for the report for today's meeting, I believe. But it's been my experience over the last 3-4 years. I apologize. I've coached a lot of youth kids in gymnasiums if I'm talking a little too loud, but we too often have tunnel vision when we look at development here, and we're only looking at the specific area and not the surrounding areas. Our neighborhood, our residential areas is just directly to the south of this proposed development. At the intersection of Trotter and Canby sits the Canby U.S. Post Office on the corner. We have Herb Bazemore, our president, and I have had multiple discussions with the postmaster about how precarious it is for their semis to deliver mail and negotiate that turn at Canby and Trotter, and just people using the post office to get in and out of the post office complex. That had we known about this and been involved in these discussions earlier, we are proposing that the petitioner set aside, and we made this aware at our one initial shakeout meeting with the petitioner, with Chris Wilkes at the Holiday Group, to for them to set aside 3 acres in their complex abutting Canby Road directly to the east, about 400 or 500 feet to the east of that intersection, to better accommodate and service the residents of our area, and to allow for the improvements at that intersection. It's quite a bottleneck. Traffic backs up over 1/3 of a mile coming north. It's the only way for all this. We're the most densely populated residential area now in Decatur Township. We have housing developments, and brand new ones, as Pat stated, 131 new homes going in with the Glenwood addition, 98 homes just starting at the Westport Trotter's Landing addition, surrounding the post office there on the corner. It just makes a whole lot of sense to do that and incorporate that in this development. Along with that, with the Urban Land Institute study, which I was asked to be a part of, they suggested a roundabout somewhere near in the vicinity of toward the eastern end, southeastern end of this complex, just west of Reynolds Road, that could tie into the eventual build out of Ameriplex or phase one of Ameriplex. Not only that is an option, but an option that would make a whole lot of sense is a access alpha trotter adjacent to a new site for a post office northbound to the proposed stoplight for this complex, so that people could northbound traffic only, so that it would alleviate all the congestion on the corner of Trotter and Canby. I just need to make this clear. I'm not diametrically opposed to the basic concept of this technology park. It makes a whole lot of sense, but there's a whole lot of things left to be done that need to be discussed and to mitigate the impact to the surrounding residential neighbors. To try to push this thing through in a matter of 2 weeks, you know, as recently as November the 14th, we were asked to sign petitions. All organizations were asked for letters of remonstrance, letters of opposition to, and I can guarantee you that the mass majority of the folks in the surrounding area aren't even aware that this is going on today. It's not a good way to do business. The involvement of the Civic Council, there was a vote conducted. The vote was 24-9 with 2 not to oppose. Not much of an attendance. It's not a fair representation of the 35,000 residents of Decatur Township. In fact, I would argue that our Trotter Road Neighborhood Association will soon have more members than the Civic Council. But back to what we're talking about here. I would like to pull up page 99 of the of today's staff report. We can flip that around so people can read it. The hearing examiner, you know, just a month ago, the staff was recommending denial of this petition for reasons stated from pages 84 through 89 of this same staff report. And all of these conditions for denial still exist today. They haven't changed. It's going to have an adverse effect to the surrounding residential area. The actual hearing examiner said in her last paragraph, the requested rezoning petition is premature at best. Industrial development has been confined to the northwest side of Kentucky Avenue. The final route of the Ameriplex Parkway Southport connector will impact the development of this potential site. Denial of these petitions was recommended. It's if you read through her recommendations or that person's recommendations, you'll see that it is premature to be doing this at this time. There should be additional input from the community. Not absolutely opposed to this. A technology park makes a whole lot of sense. It'll be much better than just straight warehouse buildings. But I also want to mention. Okay, let me go ahead and bring this up. Also, you know, the Civic Council. When we were made aware of this, both Herb Bazemore and I are members of the Land Use Committee. When we were first made aware of this, the day after Thanksgiving, I asked who all was aware of this, and was told that the McWhorters were involved in the discussions, and they're good people. I love them both, but they live across the street from this proposed development. But we have been members of the Land Use Committee now, and this is probably, you probably aren't concerned about this, but we should have been brought into these discussions because it's our neighborhoods that are being impacted most greatly by this. it's been brought to my attention that just east of the McWhorters, you have the Coven family, you have the House family, you have the Yarnell family, you have the Johnson family, you have the Bruce family, you have the Kivett family, and you have the Pointer family, all who have not been made aware of this most recent developments for this proposal. And they are abutting homeowners directly across the street and should be involved or at least notified and be allowed to have input into this discussion. So I just think that I just can't impress upon all of you people enough. We've only got one chance to get this right. There's no one ringing this bell. It's once these structures are up, there can be no modifications. There can be no setting aside a building to allow for access, better access to State Road 67 Kentucky Avenue. There can be no ground set aside for a U.S. Post Office to be relocated to a better place to serve the neighborhood. So, in summary, if anyone else has anything to say, I leave that to Dennis. If you want to wrap things up, feel free to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Are there any other remonstrators, Lyndon?
There are not.
Thank you. Let me go to staff, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have a city councilman on the phone?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Mr. President. This is Joshua Bain, City County Councilor for District 20.
Councilor Bain, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Again, thank you, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the commission. I'm new at this, so this is my first MDC commission meeting. I was caucused in about 4 or 5 months ago when our former councilor resigned to become our township trustee here in Decatur. And what I kept hearing from everyone as I was meeting with different neighbors and members of the community is how much we need economic development in Decatur Township. And I was first made aware of this development probably about 2 or 3 months ago, and was meeting with the developers, the community groups such as the Civic Council, and there's a lot of disagreement at that point as to what this is going to be. And one thing that I've been made aware of were the targeted industries that the city has, such as biotech, R&D, and racing. And I was thinking, well, it would be great if Decatur Township could take advantage of some of those targeted industries. And so when I passed along a message to the developer, and I was like, hey, would you guys be interested in a commitment to say, you will only lease to these kinds of tenants? These are high-paying, high-skilled jobs, and they were open to it and have put it in their commitments. And that's when I think we really got the ball rolling on this project. So over the past few weeks, there's been a lot of community involvement, and I certainly understand the frustration coming from the Trotter Road Neighborhood Association. I've exchanged several emails, meetings with them, phone calls, and have committed to them to continue to work over the remainder of my term as their city councilor to do everything we can to retain the value of their properties and everything and bring some amenities to the southwest side. So just going to this development, it really brings us into the 21st century. As I said, high wage, high skilled jobs. And if you live in Decatur Township, there's not very many options if you want to work in Decatur Township. We're mainly a residential area right now. And if you want to work here, then, there's really only a few restaurants, maybe some gas stations that you can work in. That's about it. So this really opens up the future for the southwest side, especially with the Ameriflex Parkway extension that can be coming in over the next few years. I keep being told by the city that if you want that Parkway extension to come through, then there has to be some kind of development in Decatur Township for us to connect it with. And that's exactly what we're doing here. And so just to wrap up, a few years from now, I think it's 2023, this land automatically gets rezoned to more of an industrial use as well. And I don't think in the next 3 years, we're going to be able to get a project much better than this. I really don't even think we're going to be able to get a project that even comes close. So this is a forward-thinking development for the southwest side. And with that, I would urge your support of the development, and just know that I will continue to work with the remonstrators to still make this project better for them as well. So thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the commission, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Counselor, and thank you for coming here today. We appreciate your outlook on economic development and welcome aboard. Staff, I need a quick revisal. I'm starting to get pressure from commissioners who have to move on. Can you please give me a short version?
I will certainly try to be brief.
Chief, I need you to be brief, please.
I will be. Staff did initially recommend denial of this proposal. It is more intense and premature based on the comprehensive plan that was adopted, not the draft plan. In its original proposal, this was mostly just warehouse space, which does not provide many jobs per acre. But with the new product mix or the new use mix in here, we believe that this will bring many more jobs per acre to the area, high paying jobs, and that's what led us to reconsider our recommendation. There have been changes made to the site plan as well, and all of that taken together has made staff reconsider our recommendation, and we are now recommending approval. That's about as quick as I can make it.
Thank you very much. Let me go back to the petitioner, Mr. Clark. You have 5 minutes. I would recommend you be quick. I'm losing votes here.
President Dillon, President Dillon, this is Councilor Bain. I'm sorry to interrupt one more time.
Yes, sir.
Sorry for still being new at this and everything, but I also wanted to pass along that our former councilor, Jason Holiday, and now our Decatur Township trustee is also in support of this. Again, sorry for having to interrupt and should have mentioned that.
Not a problem, Councilor. You can interrupt me anytime. Attorney Clark.
Yeah, Marlene, if you could go back to slide number 5, you know, I'll try to be brief. I appreciate Mr. Stoya's comments. The hearing examiner memo he showed us from last February, that was the prior case where we filed. She was reviewing something with 40 some odd more acres and a much different plan. Please keep that in mind. You know, you can see here why the maybe next slide, please. Why the city commissioned ULI to help out here, right? And so, what this whole case has turned into is adherence to this thoughtful plan, right? And kudos to the counselor, both the prior one and Josh. Kudos to Decatur Township Civic Council, Pat Andrews, both the council and the land use committee that I understand Mr. Stoya is a member of. These discussions will continue. You see in our commitments that we will continue to talk to them. I would mention 2 specific commitments. One is to address one of Mr. Stoya's comments. We have agreed to dedicate at no cost to the city property to extend Trotter Road north from Canby, which should help relieve some of the traffic concerns about which he spoke. And then both the counselor and Pat Andrews mentioned commitment number 7, which is the office flex development. And that is where we try to align this project for targeted jobs. It's a little confusing, but let me just finish by saying this. During the comprehensive economic development strategy planning process, the Indianapolis region's strengths were identified in this document in 5 clustered economic activities: life sciences, logistics, manufacturing, information technology, and sports. These 5 areas represent sectors of past and expected future economic growth for the region. The Indianapolis area has significant public and private investment in these sectors. We know that. and this investment will continue to attract new and expanding business opportunities like Hillwood's proposed high-quality office flex business park. Mr. President, members of the commission, I appreciate your favorable consideration of this petition. I'd ask that you incorporate into your record the findings of fact we submitted along with the companion variants. Of course, we stand ready to address any questions you may have.
Thank you. Let me conclude with the remonstrators. Michael, do you have any further comments?
I would like to ask at this point that the petitioner make the commitment to set aside 3 acres for the eventual relocation of the Canby U.S. Post Office off of the corner of its current location at Trotter and Canby to the southern border of the proposed development east of Trotter Road, open to more discussions that we had with Chris Wilkes and the Holiday Group. I think it's vitally important to do so. It's a fit. It would also allow for the semi-tractor trailers that negotiate the turn at Trotter and Canby to not have to negotiate to get in and out. They have to use the exit access point for the post office to get in there now. If they could just access off of State Road 67 at the proposed new stoplight, they could dock at the back of the building. There would be no need for semi-traffic any longer on Canby Road. And then that would allow a safer access for the patrons of the post office. Also, I still would like to have into consideration and ask for a commitment that there be further discussion about a northbound only access off of Canby Road adjacent to this proposed U.S. Post Office that would connect with the road to going out to State Road 67. This would only northbound would not allow traffic to come down and congest that area, but it would relieve a lot of traffic in the area. I asked for those commitments from the petitioner today and to continue talks, seeing that we were only brought into these discussions within the last 2 weeks. And that pretty well, I once again, we only have one chance to get this right. I can't impress upon everyone enough. This is a dramatic impact. This is going to have a dramatic impact on our residential area. And I understand a technology part will have less of an impact than typical warehouses, but we need to have further discussions to make sure that we have adequate screening, mounding, and a buffer along Canby Road. I understand that there may have been some modifications here recently to what was proposed to the Civic Council. I want to make sure that our residential area is protected. And be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have. I appreciate your time and respectfully, Mr. President, thank you for your time and glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate you participating. I will tell you from past experience, it is impossible to predict what the post office will do or not do. So that's a very, very difficult request.
I know, Mr. President, but we've had discussions with our new city county councilor, Josh Bain. I'm very impressed with that young man. He is energetic. I think he's gonna be a great benefit for our township. I'll go on record with that right now. He said that he would be having a discussion at some point. I don't want to speak for him, but he said that Senator Mike Braun would ask for his assistance in this matter. So, I look forward to working with Councilor Bain in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To the petitioner, I'm assuming you're standing pat on where you're at on your commitments, are you not?
We are, Mr. President, for the reason you mentioned, and also to Mr. Stoya's point, I'm not sure we want to make a decision like this in a vacuum, right? If we're gonna change the site plan to which we've committed, I think we need to bring back in, Pat and Council Bain and DTCC.
And I would be open to have those discussions. I think that's critical. That's important to have input from all impacted, everyone that's going to be impacted by this development.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Let's move forward. We have presented before us two votes. 2020 CZN 834. Our second vote will be 2020 CVR 834. I make a motion to approve 2020 CZN 834. Robinson, can I get a second?
I second.
I'm going to call the roll. Dillon, yes. Westrick,
Yes.
Selm,
Yes.
Schumacher,
Schumacher, yes.
Robinson,
Robinson, yes.
Garver,
Garver, yes.
Bruns,
Bruns, yes.
Blackburn.
Blackburn, yes.
2020 CZN 834 passes 8-0. I now will make a motion to pass 2020 CVR 834. Can I get a second from Westrick?
Second.
I'll now call the roll. Dillon is a yes. Westrick.
Westrick, yes.
Selm.
Selm, yes.
Schumacher.
Schumacher, yes.
Robinson.
Robinson, yes.
Garver.
Garver, yes.
Bruns.
Bruns, yes.
Blackburn.
Blackburn, yes.
Both motions pass 8-0. Congratulations to the petitioner. Councilor Bain, you are a breath of fresh air. Welcome aboard, sir. I now have two commissioners who are going to be diving off because they have previous business engagement. So Commissioner Bruns and Commissioner Westrick are both going to get off. And that leaves us with 6, which is still a quorum. Nancy, will you please introduce our last hearing?
Yes, sir. Rezoning petition scheduled for initial hearing, P20ZON 082 at 9495 and 9530 Kerwood Drive. Approximate address, Washington Township, Council District 2, J.C. Hart Company Incorporated by Michael Rubinovich. Requesting rezoning of 15.22 acres from the DA district to the DP district to provide for 376 multifamily dwellings at 24.7 units per acre with 2 office buildings as an optional use.
Wonderful. Is the petitioner ready?
Yes, Michael Rabinovich here on behalf of the petitioner.
Are you the only one going to testify, Michael?
I believe so, although I have others in the room in the interest of time. If you want to just swear me in, we've got other professionals here that can answer questions. But
well, we've lost 2 votes, but we still have a quorum with 6. So please swear in all your people who are going to speak today.
Okay, Nancy, I've got, as I indicated, I've got John Hart, Andy Taylor, and Scott Perkins here with me.
I need addresses and names of everybody, please.
John Hart, 805 City Center Drive in Carmel.
Scott Perkins with Blackline, 1043 Virginia Avenue, Indianapolis. Andy Taylor with Kinley Horn, 250 East 96th Street, Indianapolis.
And Michael Rabinovich, 1 Indiana Square, Suite 1800, on behalf of the petitioner.
Do you swear or affirm under the opinions of perjury to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, Mr. Rabinovich?
I do.
Mr. Taylor?
Michael, you're on the shot clock, 15 minutes.
Mr. Taylor?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Nancy. I thought you had him.
I was going to do it singly since when it gets too many, I can't hear if they're saying yes or no. Mr. Taylor?
I do.
And the other gentleman, didn't catch your last name, but go ahead.
John Hart, I do.
I got that.
And Scott Perkins, I do.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Michael, as we get ready to start, you know the rules, 15 minutes, remonstrator 15 minutes. We'll go to staff. We are now down to 6 commission members. You'll need 4 votes to approve. You're on the shot clock, Michael, go.
Okay, thank you, President Dillon, Commissioners, and thanks for your patience today. I represent J.C. Hart Company. J.C. Hart is no stranger to developing large-scale apartment communities in Indianapolis. I'm sure you're familiar with some of them, most recently in Broad Ripple with Park 66 and the line on the Monon, and of course the Penrose building on Massachusetts Avenue. First slide, please. The property that's the subject of this petition is roughly 15-acre undeveloped property at the southeast corner of 96th Street and Westfield, north of 465. You see some aerial photographs on the site. As I said, it's undeveloped, mostly overgrown vegetation, very few mature trees. In fact, the proposal that's before you would replace what's there with many more trees and landscaping. It's bordered by 96th Street on the north side. The city of Carmel controls 96th Street. We have worked very closely with the city of Carmel, both the planning office and the Department of Public Works, on the improvements that are being proposed for 96th Street, which include passing blister at both entrances, and they are supportive of the project. In fact, we are committing to not only make those improvements, but make a significant contribution to the thoroughfare plan so that when it's time, additional improvements can be made to 96th Street as well, committing to a multi-use path, which I'll get to on the north side of project. In this area, the comprehensive plan recommends office commercial, but in meetings with the planning staff, I think we're all in agreement, and staff has indicated their support for the project, that the multi-family use that's being proposed is most appropriate. We have offered an alternative site plan, which includes 2 office buildings, should the office market turn and that become something that's desirable for the area, but I don't think anyone here believes that's what is going to come about. So we're seeking approval of rezoning, if you go to the next slide, of the site from a DA to a DP to permit an 8-building apartment development in accordance with the development statement and site plan and elevations that have been submitted to you. The development includes a 5-story podium building at the intersection of 96th West, 4 stories of apartments over 1 floor of parking. The remaining buildings along 96th Street there and behind are 3 stories with some penthouse space in certain areas to bring some additional living space and some articulation to the buildings. Great care has been taken on the site planning for this project to lay it out and come up with an architectural design that fits in context. It's intended to bring a warm suburban village feel with buildings that are a mix of primarily masonry and fiber cement siding with lots of glass, most importantly at the intersection. We'll show you that. Look at the renderings. There's a clubhouse building to the south and middle of the site. It's labeled as Building 5, which will have site amenities, a gymnasium, pool, and the leasing office. We are proposing 376 units in the apartment buildings with a mix of studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. We've provided for parking with, at this point, 667 spaces with a minimum parking ratio of 1.7 spaces per unit, which is actually above the ordinance standard, but what the J.C. Hart Company has determined is appropriate for a suburban development. like this. Next slide, please.
Oh, Michael, I'm turned around here. Help me out. So go back to the last slide, please. So that's looking to the north.
That's looking from the north south. So the south side of the building is bordered by 465 there.
The south side of the
south side of the project. So we're in an airplane above the north. You see that there, 465?
So you're on the north side of 465.
That's correct.
Okay, now I got it. Now, and there's two big for sale signs on the properties.
That's correct, on the corner.
So you come to the what's Parma call those things?
The roundabout?
The roundabout, and you go right on 96th Street, and then it's on your right.
That is correct.
Got it. Okay, I walked that property, but it didn't look right on your picture there. I got it. Okay, I'm up to speed now. Got it.
Okay, so maybe flip ahead a couple of slides, one more here. Back one. So this, President Dillon is looking north from the south, so 465 is on the south end of the project.
Got it.
Really, all I wanted to point out here is there's significant property tax benefit as a result of this development. We're not seeking any kind of city contribution for the development over 10 years. It's really generating no property tax now. We estimate nearly $10 million of additional property tax generation, which also represents additional revenue to Washington Township schools of $6 million. So we wanted to point that out. Next slide, please. And one more slide.
Michael, how far to the east does this come? It goes past Maple?
The eastern entrance is aligned with Maple. So if we'll skip to this, the site plan is a couple slides forward. There. You can see where the two entrances to the development line up with Lincoln to the west is the first entrance east of Westfield, and then Maple would be the second entrance.
So building 3 and building, oh, my eyes are going to hell. They are east of Maple, of the entrance.
Building 3 is east of Maple. Building 3 is east of Maple. Building 4 is on the west side of Maple.
Got it. That's what I thought. And then what's the building that's on the interstate? Is that building 3 also?
Well, there are two buildings really that tee into the interstate. On the west, starting with the west, you got another building labeled Building 3, then moving west along the interstate, you got an L-shaped building, Building 4, and then that building, the next building is the clubhouse.
Got it. Okay, I got you. I'm just trying to figure it all out, guys.
Yeah, that's fair. No, move to next slide, please. I wanted to spend a few minutes on the landscape plan because we have spent a lot of time working with neighbors, the planning staff, Nora Community Council, which President Dillon, I'm proud to say we come here with the support of the Nora Community Council, along with City County Councilor Potts. The landscape. Comment I would make, I mentioned the support we've received from Nora, city county councilor, and other neighbors. There is a neighbor across the street. He may be on the phone. His main concern was improvements on 96th Street that were made in close proximity to his home. And what we wanted to make clear was that any improvements to 96th Street that we will be making, which are at the request of the city of Carmel, are within the right of way, not on any private property. With that, again, I think we're in line with the planning staff's support recommendation and the issues they raised in the staff report. Councilor Potts has put his letter into the file for you, and if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any other comments from the petitioner?
No.
Michael, how big is the project value?
$66 million.
Total, Michael, how big's the?
Total investment of $66 million.
66 million, got it. I thought you said 6,600. Got it. Okay, does Mr. Hart have any comments?
President Dillon, thank you for your time today. We've been very active in the community, building our electric apartment communities, and feel this is a great addition to the county, and would very much appreciate your support and approval today.
John, I always appreciate you sticking by your word. You've done a great job on everything you've told us you were going to do. So we're very appreciative of that, sir.
Thank you very much.
Does that conclude your presentation, Michael?
Yes, it does.
Let me go to, we have a remonstrator on the phone, I understand.
We do. Jason
Right.
Massaro.
Please bring Jason on so he can introduce himself and Nancy can swear him in, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Can you introduce yourself and your address, sir?
I'm sorry, Jason Massaro, M as in Mary, A-S-S as in Sam, A-R-O. Address is 2050 East 96th Street, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46240.
Nancy? Nancy?
John, it looks to me like she's been having connectivity problems.
Okay. Thomas Moore, are you on?
I am, Mr. President.
Can you swear in this gentleman, please?
I am actually not authorized to perform oaths.
Mr. Dillon, I am allowed to.
Thank you. Please do it.
Mr. Massaro, do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Go ahead and state your name and address for the record.
Indianapolis, 46240. Mr. President, members of the commission, thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'd like to first indicate that also in my conference room today is Mr. Eugene Bowen, who resides at 9601 Kittrell, which is the residence directly to the west of my law firm. If we could probably, for demonstrative purposes, turn to page 2 of what's up on the screen. While that's being done, I'll give you a little bit of background. The address that I gave is the address that's being affected by the construction. It is not a residence. It is the location of my law firm, the Massaro Legal Group, LLC. I'll refer to that as TMLG moving forward. So the concerns we have primarily today, and I will try my best not to use the entirety of the time because I don't think it's needed, but primarily the concern that we have is the safety concern. My law firm, TMLG, is located directly to the west of Lincoln Boulevard, which is the first, I believe, of 2, Maple being the second, of entrances to the site. So directly across Lincoln would be probably what appears to be the main location for the entrance for this proposed project. What we are primarily concerned there is that along with what I'll call a car pass that Mr. Rabinowitz talked about is in the right of way. The main concern we have there is coming out of a commercial structure of TMLG, which was renovated in 2016 to be a law firm and has operated as such since then, and it was a business prior. It creates several dangerous pinch points. The land located in between my law firm and Lincoln is approximately a 20-foot swatch of property. Coming out of the law firm, coming southbound traffic from Lincoln, and cars passing from east to west on 96th Street have a tremendous ability to collide with one another if that right-of-way and that bypass is created there. What will ultimately happen from discussions with the Developers Council is that there will be a stop sign at Lincoln, but the area of the driveway of TMLG and Lincoln will be pushed back, perhaps not proportionately. So those individuals coming southbound on Lincoln desiring to travel westbound on 96th Street will most likely be looking to their left. I don't think that an accurate traffic study is before you, especially since the roundabout at Westfield has been completed for a while. But what has not been completed for a while is the roundabout at 96th Street and Keystone Avenue, which before, while that construction was going on, traffic at 4 or 5 o'clock would be backed up to my offices from Keystone. Now traffic has increased dramatically, which was already a well-used space, thus the desirability of the location of the firm. But the traffic there is increased significantly, because it's an easier route now, and also because the construction is done. So that's one point. But in addition, we're very concerned that individuals coming out of TMLG will not be able to see, let alone avoid collisions with primarily fast-moving traffic heading on 96 bound westbound. I'm sorry, 96th Street westbound, that may collide with either Lincoln travelers or those coming out of TMLG. And TMLG doesn't have another avenue. That's why it has the 96th Street address to allow for parking. That is our parking lot for the law firm. Secondarily, the walking path. So what ultimately is happening here, and I understand the economics of it and why commercial and retail is not currently desirable, although I would proffer that it's the highest and best use for the site. The location, the corridor between Keystone and Meridian via 96th Street, in my conversations with Carmel, has been a desire to convert it primarily to light commercial and retail, much like we see over at 96 and Meridian with all of the office buildings there. There currently obviously is residential here, but the ultimate goal, I believe, is to move away from that. And what we're actually doing in this location is dropping a tremendous amount of pedestrians in a location that is probably what I would call a second pinch point. Then the project wants to take a walk path on the north side of the site across the southbound, the south side of 96th Street towards the Westfield Boulevard roundabout, and then have a non-elevated walking path across Westfield, across 96th Street at Westfield, which, if you look at the nature of the roundabout at Westfield Boulevard there, probably is no worse location to put a pedestrian walk path. Those individuals driving north on Westfield Boulevard have a dedicated right turn lane eastbound on 96th Street. By almost definition, those individuals, while having a right to care for pedestrian traffic, are moving very fast through that area and would be highly motivated to look only left, to their left, westbound, completely avoiding those individuals now with an increased pedestrian use, walking terrain on the walk path across that intersection there. That is an invitation for pedestrian and motorist collisions. So our concerns primarily are safety, both with regard to our clients, the general traffic that passes through this area, and also the pedestrians that pass around and that we're going to dramatically increase in this area to put them across that intersection there, that roundabout. One of them is, so safety and highest and best use are primarily our concerns. One issue, if you're inclined to move forward, that we had discussed as a possible alternative, is to avoid what I call the car pass, which is that extension into the right of way that council talked about on the north side of 96th Street, and disallow a left-hand turning southbound into the site. So any traffic on 96th Street heading westbound would be prohibited from turning left or south into the site, and instead would be compelled to proceed only slightly forward and take advantage of the Westfield Boulevard roundabout, make a legal U-turn and proceed southbound into the site. Or alternatively, if that no turn is not something that the commission is interested in, that we strongly suggest that the location of these entrances, primarily the Lincoln one, because it is, like I said, 20 feet from a commercial building. The Maple Drive one is less of a concern, both because of what's there and also what's not there. And modify the location of these entrances, which I don't think would be a huge ask, given the tremendous amount of parking spaces in this location, to move some of these buildings around where there's not a direct access point from Lincoln Boulevard, which is going to be probably the main entrance, or one. It's only two, so it's one of the two main entrances. So we would ask that there be some modifications there to avoid that press point there at Lincoln Boulevard, the Massaro Legal Group law firm, the Westfield Boulevard roundabout, and the main entrance there to the project. So those are our concerns. I'll field any questions that the commission may have, but thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councilor. Any questions for the remonstrator for members of the commission? Hearing none. Staff. Who has this for staff? Linda, do you know who has this for staff?
This should have been Keith Holdsworth. He must have dropped off. Give me 1 second, Mr. President. Staff will be recommending approval for this petition, even though that the comprehensive plan does say it should be office. The intensity of the uses by making it residential by multifamily, the effect of the multifamily being onto this property with inside of Indianapolis at these locations makes sense, and we are willing to we recommend approval as submitted.
Thank you. Questions for staff?
Matt, I know you kind of picked the ball up here. Do you have any thoughts on some of the traffic and pedestrian issues that the remonstrator laid out?
Sure. So actually, this street, 96th Street, is actually controlled by Carmel. So I do know that, and Mr. Rabinowitz, I'm sure we'll definitely answer that in a second when it's thrown back at him. But we are well aware they've had conversations with Carmel, both their planning department and the public works department on their side. We, from our standpoint, have influence on site design and maybe how many access points, but in reality, this has been thrown into Carmel's court regarding that street.
Bruce, does that answer your question or?
No disrespect to Matt, but not completely. But maybe Mr. Rabinowitz will have some help on that too.
Absolutely.
Other questions for staff? Hearing none. Michael, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you. Yes, President Dillon, I'll make a few comments responsive to the demonstrators' comments, and then I'd like Andy Taylor, civil engineer, to talk a little more specifically about some of the traffic and comments that were made in the conversations with Carmel in response to Commissioner Schumacher. But from an overall land use perspective, the comp plan recommends office commercial. And what we are proposing here is less intense in terms of trip generation than at least office and likely most commercial users. So that's one broad comment. As it relates to the traffic along 96th Street, in recent years, significant investment and effort has gone into improvement of the roundabout at 96th and Westfield, and as well Keystone, of course, the Keystone and 96th roundabout, and precisely for the reason that additional development was anticipated in this area of 96th Street, commercial or otherwise. And so what we are proposing is not inconsistent with these developments that are forward thinking. With respect to how we've laid out the entrances and the pedestrian path, that was in conversation with Carmel. We are tracking, they have a detailed thoroughfare plan which provides their requirements for improvements along 96th Street, and that multi-use path that we are proposing on the north side of the development was part of their requirement. So we have worked hard to incorporate that and connect it with the Monon Trail to the west to make it more pedestrian active. With respect to moving the entrances, Andy, let me turn it over to Andy Taylor to comment on that.
So if we were to move the entrances to not align with Lincoln Boulevard, it would create more conflict points. And the original concept was thought out pretty thoroughly to make sure that we did align with Lincoln and Maple. One factor that went into that was the proximity to the roundabout. As you move further to the west, you're getting closer to the roundabout itself. So we wanted to make sure that our secondary entrance that's required for fire access is further away from that roundabout and also serves the purpose for the main entrance for the development. If it were to move, it would cause more conflict points and potentially more accidents.
With that, I think we're happy to answer any additional questions.
Thank you. Your rebuttal is over. I'll go back to the demonstrator. You have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
First, for the record, I have Eugene Brown in my conference room, who is Bowman, I'm sorry, in my conference room. Just for the record, so we can preserve it, can he be sworn and make his statement?
Please, can he introduce himself and his address?
Eugene S. Bowen II, 9601 Kittrell Drive, Carmel, 46280.
Mr. Bowen, do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. You have shot clocks running. 5 minutes. Go.
I'd like for Jason. I live on the corner house there of 96 in Kittrell, so I'm right across from Building 2 and proposed Building 2 and 3. I have seen several people hit by vehicles trying to cross that roundabout, and I've seen 2 dead dogs in the last couple of years. It's very dangerous. I think it's ludicrous what they're proposing on how people will merrily go to the Monon Trail and crossing that roundabout. The traffic is very intense, and I'd give you odds nobody has done a traffic study in the last 2 years.
Thank you, sir. Anything else?
Mr. President, just, I think, we obviously disagree with the engineer. I think we're talking about a scale. To use his word, we would have more accidents. I think that underscores the point. And I didn't hear any discussion about the impact on the commercial traffic moving in and out of Lincoln Boulevard and TMLG. I didn't also hear a response as to why it's not feasible to slightly alter these buildings. I mean, in talking with the Developers Council, I understand that they went over and above with the parking, which kind of means to me that there's room to play here. I mean, I guess it's desirable from a development perspective to have a certain number of parking spots per residence, but not at the cost of safety. And it is not if, it's when this pinch point between Lincoln Boulevard and TMLG, and I'll leave it to the city of Carmel what they do. That's on their shoulders if they want to have a non-elevated walk path. But I raise it only because I don't think the safety concepts of this have at all been really flushed out. I think the primary concern is they want to develop this property, and I understand that. And I also understand that they want to develop this as a deviation from an office commercial to a residential structure given the current economic climate. I get that too, but what I don't understand and why it's not being contemplated is that there are very real and significant safety risks in this location that I think we'd be completely remiss not to address or look at. I have not seen any traffic studies that are going to determine how this flow is going to actually work. And again, I think the traffic study that the commission is relying upon is faulty. It does not reflect the reality of the speeds upon which the traffic, one, the volume of it, and two, the speeds at which this traffic moves down 96th Street in general and around this roundabout. And there is, but for the Carmel and some other police officers that actually live in this area, there is not a police presence here to really understand the speeds at which people travel through here. So I think we're throwing caution to the wind here and not considering real safety practicalities. I'm not trying to stand in the way of development, believe me. I do that as a livelihood, so I don't have a problem with that. But these are real safety concerns we're not taking into account. Thank you again.
Thank you for your testimony. Any final questions for the remonstrator? Hearing none, let's move forward. Members of the commission, we have before us 2020 ZON 018 recommendation from staff and from City Councilman Potts. Can I get a motion to approve by Garber?
So moved.
Can I get a second by Robinson?
Robinson, second.
As I repeated, we're down to 6 votes. We need 4 for approval. I'll now call the roll. Blackburn.
Blackburn, yes.
Garber.
Garber, yes.
Robinson.
Robinson, yes.
Schumacher.
Schumacher, yes.
Selm.
Selm, yes.
Dillon is a yes. It passes 6-0. To John Hart, you have an outstanding reputation, and you've heard concerns of the individuals that live close to your property. I know you'll keep those in mind as you put this beautiful development together. Good luck to you, sir. That concludes our meeting. I make a motion, we adjourn. And Merry Christmas to all. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Merry Christmas.